Committee meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was me. Mr. Chairman?
Excuse me. Unless there's objection, I would like to pass on the minutes
Okay, that was my...
and do
was-
the
that was-
reserve fund transfer.
Yep.
Let me go.
Yep, perfect.
Right.
That was my question. You got there before me.
Right, I gave everyone a paper copy. It's yours to keep. We have 3 copies for a reserve transfer request. The requester is Town Administrator Carter Terenzini. He is present here tonight. It was signed by the Assistant Town Accountant per our policy, and we have 3 original copies. It's for to transfer from the reserve to the purchase of service account for the to the town accountant. The amount of the request is $2,750. If you've been following, we're going to have an override item on the ballot, the election, and the selectmen adopted Mass General Law, and they're going to do, I don't know if you get it in the mail, like when the state election, you have a voter's guide, and it tells you what all the ballot questions that are submitted, and it gives what happens if you vote for this, what happens if you vote against it, and usually a group is for, a pro and a con. And I will let the town administrator further expand on that.
Sure. I mean, simply put, the board had not adopted the statute at the time of preparing the FY19 budget, nor did we know there might be an override question in this magnitude, so there were no monies in the budget in anticipation of that override. Town clerk has approximately $2,425 left in her account as of preparing the request, insufficient to cover the roughly $2,750 to prepare and send this out. She has all of the expenses of the town election to pay for: ballots, the software coding, meals for the workers, all of those kinds of things. So we've asked for this transfer. We did look at our own purchase of service account. That has some challenges of its own. But also, we thought more appropriately, this document is supposed to be prepared through the auspices of the town clerk's office in conjunction of town council. So that's why we thought her account would be the most appropriate place to pay for this from. We did publish the notice seeking comments. You may have seen that. I think I forwarded that to the advisory committee and asked you to circulate it to anyone. We did only receive, as of my understanding from the clerk's office, 1 submission on the 4 sides, so town council will have to draft the against side. Should we receive supplemental ones after the date actually came and went, town clerk still has to maintain all of those in her office for anyone to view. Monies may be a little bit less. We'll have to see what the printer looks like, how many people are actually, we have to mail 1 to each household, and then postage. So we've asked for enough, we think, to cover everything okay, maybe a little bit more than we need. You never know till you actually end up doing the mailing to an exact figure. Beyond that, I'm really not sure there's much I can add, Jeff.
I'll add one thing. The listed present balance on the document is $3,214.76. I went in and talked with the town clerk to ask about the coding cost, and the coding, and she had to do it for the state election and the annual town election, is set up a machine in case someone comes in that is blind or something, and she said has never been used, and it's a cost of $983 just to do that.
The one machine, that's correct.
And she, like I said, it's a state requirement for all elections. You set up the machine. She said it has never been used, but it's one of those things you have to do. So, and that would be, like, Bill, after the election, so, you can look at that, and there's, almost $1,000 gone out of there just for that. And then the number of ballots that will be printed is an additional cost, so.
And then we have to code the regular machines as well.
Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 6 says, town reserve funds to provide for extraordinary or unforeseen expenditures. A town may at annual special town meeting appropriate or transfer some not exceeding, this is has the old wording. Nonetheless, all transfers from this fund must go through the Finance and Advisory Committee. So, barring any further discussion, I would entertain a motion
Mr. Chairman, can I
on
have
this.
some questions before we go into that?
We'll
Was it
have a
discussion?
motion and a second, and then
Okay.
discuss.
So, Mr. Chair, I propose a motion to grant the reserve fund request from the TA and the town accountant's office in the amount of $27.50 to be used for the town meeting mailer as written and in the packet.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I could end up, by the way, Ms. Terracini, thank you for answering some of the questions that I passed on this afternoon. It was very helpful to understand that as to how complex this is gonna be. My concern was that going into this, it wouldn't be enough if there was a lot. Only having one, I'm kinda disappointed that we didn't have more input to this. I think it's an important document for everybody to see. And I was a little bit surprised that the breakdown, so everybody knows the breakdown that you have given here, is that the cost is total cost for postage, et cetera, and printing is $1,705, and it's $1,000 for council. I hope you're expecting those to be a little bit lower. The only other question I have, and pertains to this, was the fact that when we did the budget planning in like January, February, was that communicated to the school that we were only looking at 2.5% for our increase for the budget? At that particular time?
Well, let me stay on target with the specific request, and then I'll answer your other question. First, I want to be clear, no matter how many submissions the town had gotten, it is the responsibility of town council to take them all and to distill them into 150 words. That's the maximum. You don't print everything that you receive. They save on file. They stay on file, okay? So I just want everybody to understand that.
So this is the only one we're gonna print, is the one that we received?
It's it. You get 150 words for each side, and then a summation from council. We can't edit it, we can't change it, that's between council and the clerk. Do I get a chance to take a look at it to know what's going on? You betcha. Can I touch a single word? Unless he's typed it wrong, or, he's got a comma, or, an edit thing, no, I
Yep.
can't touch it.
Okay.
With respect to what did we tell the schools? We told the schools, actually, at around this time in 2018, that we wanted them to take a 0 increase from us this year. That didn't sit very well. Jeff sat through some of those with me. But it was our fervent hope that they would take a 0 increase and seek anything and everything that they needed through an override, such that we would then have a little bit of breathing room, that I hoped we could be stable for 3 years, plus or minus. That's the only answer I can give you on that. I think I was pretty clear. I think everybody understood that.
Yeah, I know, our chairman had said last year at this time and multiple times that he thought it was a $1 million override, but that's gone by the board. I just want to take and end up seeing if we communicated something with them and they still went on to end up giving us that budget. Because it was unforeseen. You've communicated that, and as far as you were concerned, you communicated where we were, and it was unanticipated that they would do what they have
Well,
done.
I don't want to get into, trying to sort all
Can
that.
I just, Will, can I just ask a question? Not that your comments aren't important, but what's the relevance to the transfer?
Well, I just wanted to find out that it wasn't, he had communicated something, and it wasn't anticipated on the town's portion that we were going to see this level of increase.
You can't know what the school
And
committee
I'm
is
not,
going
I
to
just,
do.
so it actually forced us into this position of having to take and make this document for just that one warrant article.
You can't foresee what they are going to do.
Yeah, I understand that. I just
And I'd be
wanna-
happy to answer any questions on the school when we're discussing the school warrant
Yep.
article.
So,
That was my own questions.
Okay.
anything else? All right, hearing none, seeing none. On the reserve fund transfer request to the purchase of services for the town clerk in the amount of $2,750. With a motion and a second. Mike? Tony?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, folks.
I didn't want to cut you off there, Will, but
No,
I was just trying to understand the
No,
relevance to
I
the
was trying to take and
transfer.
get, when we are being publicly looked at here, if we ask the right questions and people understand what the whole thing is all about, and when we accept something, we've asked the right questions so people can understand when they see this.
Will, I
It's
couldn't
important.
agree with you more. In fact, I agree with you even more than you know, because that's what's at issue at the fall town meeting, the annual town meeting, is the fact that people don't understand, so that's why we exist.
The more we
to
can
try
end up
and
making
explain
them
that. So I
understand, the
couldn't
better
agree with you
chance we
more.
have.
I can give you the requester's copy now.
Sure,
That's fine.
that'd be fine.
And,
Whatever makes life simple.
Yeah.
and I will give you the accountant's copy.
Sure.
You can pass that on.
Happy to.
We'll just save.
He's doing that as the chair.
I think we all gotta sign it. We all have to sign his copy.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, will you entertain a motion to close our regular meeting and open pre-town meeting?
Thanks, Jeff.
Appreciate it. I think all we have to do is do that. You didn't have any other business?
Yeah.
No.
Because we moved past the meeting minutes.
Roger.
All right. All right, the next agenda item is our pre-town meeting, which is a hearing which allows everyone, anyone who is here, if they wish to be heard or spoke, they will be allowed to. It eliminates the chair saying, no, we're not gonna take any questions. That's my interpretation. I went back and looked at the bylaw when it was passed. So I will entertain a motion to open up the pre-town meeting hearing.
So done.
Second.
And to close the regular meeting, Mr. Chairman, I'll also.
Right. Motion made and seconded to open pre-town meeting hearing. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yep.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
yes. We'll be looking over the warrant for the annual town meeting. We'll go down each warrant article.
Mr. Chairman, you had put a question out to us about how to put our votes on to the warrant.
Will, you're referring to the document you sent?
Yes.
Are you referring
yes.
to the document?
Right,
Okay, I have
and
that
so
document.
how,
open.
how we're gonna respond to that and put our recommendations. I would like to take and not only see a vote either for or against, but the actual vote, so that folks know that what the vote is. If it's 5-2, for or against, they understand.
That was why I sent out the format, which was the Word document that had favorable actions and with explanations in it. That was done at the special town meeting in the fall.
I can
I
get on
would
board with that,
personally
Will.
If
like to
everyone
see-
was okay with that
I
format.
don't think we need to go down the path, I agree with you, Will. I don't think we need to go down the path of why we have a dissenting vote. I think that's, I thought about that long and hard, and I think trying to get into dissenting vote things confuses the issue. But as far as a vote,
Well, it gives,
I'm on
it
board
gives
with that.
whoever is dissenting, if there's 1 or 2 people, the opportunity at the annual town or a special town meeting to stand up and speak
Yes.
to. why-
agreed, but not in our report.
Yes.
Even, yes, it's even in our reports,
I
we
don't
have
want
I
done
don't
that.
want it in a report.
Because the town moderator is on board with the way that we did it the last meeting, and it basically reading that blurb. I don't wanna get into any, well, this is what we deliberated or whatever. That's why people come into this meeting, so they can talk about it. I don't wanna,
Okay, we will talk about
Okay,
the
sorry.
format later. We'll just do the
okay,
articles, and we get this done, and then we can close and discuss amongst ourselves.
you got it.
Right, first article. Late bills. To see if the town will vote to authorize the payment of late bills from prior fiscal years from fiscal 19 budgets to the following departments in the following amounts. DPW Highway Division, $1,269. DPW Building and Grounds, $288.
You want questions, or you wanna take and end up having a vote on this first? To accept or reject?
If anyone has any questions,
Yes,
first,
my only question to the administrator is, this is the second or third year we have seen late bills, and I presume that they're coming after July 15th. And it's, again, the highway department. The question here is it the same vendor, and can we get that vendor to take and work with us to have those before the close of the books, so we don't have to put a warrant article to cover those? I mean, I'd like to see that happen.
Well, this is not the first time this has happened, I think, at every meeting since I've been here. This is not uncommon in other communities. It is not only the highway department, I think in the fall it may have been the sewer department. It's different departments from time to time. Do we have some vendors that are more problematic than others? Yes. Do we try to get the departments to work with those vendors to try to avoid these problems? Yes. I suppose would one way be to get their attention to refuse to pay the bills? Yes.
an
But they're
advocate of
small,
that.
for the most part, the problematic vendors tend to be small, local folks that we wanna maintain a good positive relationship with.
Thank you.
Kelly takes quite an effort to try to, we start around May 15, June 1 with the drumbeat of, get your bills in here, get your bills in here. I really don't know what more I can say about it than that.
It's an invoicing problem.
Yeah,
Is there a mass equivalent to the Prompt Payment Act, where you basically have 30 days to pay a bill? Actually, it wouldn't even apply here, because it's invoicing.
Yep.
I got it.
Yeah.
I have no issues with this.
Lost on a desk or something.
well,
I'll make a motion to accept the warrant article as written and to approve
Yeah,
it.
we're recommending for it.
For it, yes.
okay. So a motion to recommend favorable action.
Second.
Second. All right. Article 1, recommend favorable action. Mike?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
And yes. Article 2, fiscal year 2019 operating budget amendments. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $50,000 and no cents for supplemental appropriations to the fiscal year 2019 operating budget as follows. The Selectmen, $7,500 for litigation and codification. Veteran Services, $12,500, growth in client census. Highway, $15,000, Main Street Bridge and Vehicle Maintenance. Town Accountant, $5,000, coverage for med leave. Snow and ice, $10,000, fiscal year 19 deficit. I will say, the veteran service is one of those things, it has to be paid. And we get, if the paperwork is done properly, you get, on time, you get 75% of what you spend on the veterans, but it's, you got no choice, you have to pay for those veterans' bills. So, I'd entertain,
I have a, oh, that's right, you're gonna do a motion,
do a motion, and then,
or we wanna discuss it and then make a motion?
that's the way, okay, we'll just.
Oh,
keep it the
however
same
you
way.
wanna
Go
do
ahead.
it, however you
Go ahead,
wanna.
we'll do it the same way we did the first one.
So, I have a question on the town accountant for the med leave. I understand the issue, but isn't that already covered by her salary? I mean, she's just getting her salary while she's on medical leave. Why is
She's
there?
getting her salary while she's on medical leave.
Mhm.
The part-time staff person has had their hours increased so they can do some of the additional duties the accountant would have done if she were in the office full-time,
Right.
and to keep the office full-time
Right.
open, and to tackle some tasks, for instance, the open enrollment for the health insurance that happens this time of year, that the accountant
Okay,
would have most likely done if she were here
okay.
on a full-time basis.
Okay, and I'm thinking that for the budget, this is to cover while Kelly's out now, and we have the article in here to, okay,
Right,
I got it.
right.
All right,
One other question,
snow and ice, we
We
gotta
came to
pay.
you for from the transfer, and it was suggested you'd rather wait and handle it this way, if I recall correctly.
That's how you guys wanted to do it. I didn't think that was necessary, but,
And if the challenge is, we're spending money in anticipation that a supplemental appropriation gets made at the town meeting. So,
that's why I was against it.
Mr. Chair, I have a point of order. I think the motion's gonna have to come after, because we have to have the discussion to get an idea if we're for or against, whatever the vote winds up being, because if you start out, if someone's gonna put a motion that we are for this, it's gonna become confusing, because then
As I
if we
said, we'll
all.
follow what we did on the first.
Yeah, if we discuss it
thank you.
first, that's, we're gonna get a sense,
Good
and then
point.
someone's gonna say, based on all the discussion, I'm gonna recommend that we're
Yeah.
against this,
Good point.
because
Mr.
otherwise
Zini,
it's just
Yeah.
gonna get
Yeah.
confusing.
One other question that I,
Double
if I could,
negatives.
is, have we adjusted the veteran service budget this year so that we don't have such a large amount to have to cover that, or?
well, we have adjusted the veteran service budget upward for the coming year. I can't recall exactly
It's 104,
by how much,
120.
perhaps by $10,000 or more. But the veterans' services is a bit like snow and ice. I mean, snow and ice depends upon the storms that hit us. The veterans' services can be impacted upon new veterans moving into town.
Yep.
It can be impacted by deaths, as we pay for burial costs and some of those associated. It can be impacted by a veteran who was, in fairly good health and
Cold
now
winter,
has some medical needs with some scripts that have a higher price point. That can be impacted by a wide variety of factors. To date, We've spent about $65,000 with about 82% of the year. So if you look at that on a straight burn rate, yeah, you know, but you just can't do that. You know, I think that we'll end up less than this, which is pretty close to where we budgeted for next year. But it's not an exact science.
So I have a question for you then. So, like, for veterans requesting the 12,500, if at the end of June, she still has money in her budget, let's just say it's 5,000, does that number automatically change to 75? Or
So-
does the rest go to free cash?
So one of two things. We hope that we have covered what we need. We
Right.
know the highway may actually be in a little bit more trouble. We know veterans may actually have money left. So we can do one of two things. We'll be visiting y'all late June, early July with perhaps a few transfers. If there's money there, we may use that as a source.
Okay.
If we don't use it as a source, it then rolls into free cash.
Okay.
The reason I asked my question, Mr. Terenzini, was that looking at this year's budget, it shows that 12,250 was taken out of it, out of the request, and it's only 80,000, and that's lower, I believe, than last year, and I just,
And it's not lower than last year, it's up. I can't recall exactly
is it, okay.
how much it's up, but it is up. Roughly $12,500, something.
As high as 120.
And veterans can move out of town and move into town at the drop of a hat, and all of a sudden, you know, you had 100 veterans, and all of a sudden, you have 105, 110
Or you have one that's
something.
been on what we would call monthly maintenance,
Yeah.
and 3 months in, they have an unfortunate death.
Ju-
You know, so it's a wild card. You cannot predict it with any great degree of accuracy.
Just for clarification, Mr. Terenzini is actually correct. There's another $10,000 more than last year by looking at the BVA. It shows 70,000, and in the budget it's 80,000. So
Okay.
that will lessen, hopefully, the issue for next year.
Mr. May,
I don't have anything for that.
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. Mr. Terenzini, the question I have on this with regards to the 7,500 for litigation and codification. I know I haven't seen the, you know, just letting you know, I haven't seen the contract actually for the codification for general code, but in 16, there was a representative from general code that came in, there was a Board of Selectmen meeting, the presentation was brought, and it was $99.95. We now have $11.95, I believe, in the budget for annual maintenance for the codification. And I'm just wondering what this $7,500, I know it says litigation and codification, if it's just a combined or if it's broken down, and what that covers.
Sure. So the codification firm takes everything that you have, they put it all together in their ordering, and they do a first blush cursory kind of, this section perhaps conflicts with this section may not be keeping in statute. They do not do a deep dive down to the comma, the word, every single element. So we had a couple of things going on. The first was that there were some bylaws that had been, I'm not going to say rejected, but to which the Attorney General office had reacted, which the town had never dealt with. So that took quite a bit of effort by itself. The second was, there were some things that came up during the course, for instance, the municipal violations or the civil infractions, the trench bylaw, some other things that had to be dealt with that really came to the surface as a result of this search for all these old Attorney General opinions and the like. In addition, because of the complexity of the project, we determined that it was best to bring town council out twice. We brought him out once, you know, between his appearance time here, some travel time, some mileage. You're looking around $1,200, give or take, on that. So the project has been, I think, substantially more complex than the community anticipated on that side of it. Now, with respect to the litigation, we have two pieces of ongoing litigation that we think may move to trial in June. We honestly don't know. If they don't, we're in pretty decent shape. Back to Tony's question of what happens if there's money left over. We've actually had to spend about $6,500 on those during the course of the year. You know, I mean, if everything goes well on the litigation front, if neither of those move forward, one actually we resolved pretty quickly. If the other one does not move forward in this fiscal year, we may be in good shape. I don't know, I have to anticipate.
That was my question. Was the $7,500 justified based on your check sheet of what do I have legal-wise? What am I gonna, all I wanted to do is make sure that we were being good stewards and saying, can you justify these? And if you can, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I take my
You got a balance of
remaining
about
funds,
25.
I take out the things for others like the town forester and some other things. I look at what my monthly bills have been running, what I anticipate they're going to be, what I anticipate to be frankly a lengthy
Okay.
town meeting. And then I look at this potential for the litigation to go forward, if that moves
by
forward
the
into
hour.
court. That will burn cash very quickly.
Okay.
One day of court prep appearance will easily, cost $4,000.
Okay, I understand.
Just
I'm
one
looking at
day.
the budget to actual, 5,200, so, based on what you've got left with what you're forecasting, that's why you're asking for the 7,500.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very hopeful we can do with less, but I just don't know.
Just one comment on that. Since we're talking about a large amount of money and the possibility of not expending that, we have to be very careful come the end of the year transfers that we don't take that money that we gave from emergency reserve, and this is my thoughts, that we don't take that money that came from emergency reserve and try to transfer it somewhere else, because that's not the case with moving emergency money to, or even this here, to end up moving into an account and having the town vote on it and then move it somewhere else.
Well,
That goes
none of this
against,
money's coming from emergency reserve in Mr. Spring.
no, but I'm saying on this particular one,
Never suggested I was a spendthrift with the emergency reserve.
no, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that we have to be careful for emergency reserve as well as any funds that we approve at town meeting, that the intent is to take and use it for that. If it's not used, we don't take and transfer it, do an end-of-year transfer. That's all I'm saying.
We have to be very judicious. For instance, we've asked for $10,000 for the snow and ice deficit. As of 4/28/19, my deficit was 96.92. When I know, I can be pretty close. But I have, April bills out there, and I have to anticipate May and June. And you may have seen over the course of the budget, I think we brought that from about 130,000 and change down into this $50,000 range.
Mr. May?
Mr. Chairman, just as a quick follow-up here, does that figure get us through this warrant and through the May 7th meeting with town council?
We have plenty of money to get through town meeting at this point, based on everything we know. The problem is, if town meeting goes along, and we hit the litigation, then I would be out of money by May 15th.
I might have was talking about the codification.
Oh, yes,
the money
yes,
for that
yes.
covers, that's up to date, like to May 7th?
Yes,
Right.
yes, he's coming out Tuesday night. Yes, we're in decent shape. This is anticipatory. I might end up coming back to you at the end of the year and saying, never went to trial, shame on me, I didn't need a penny.
Thank you, Carter.
Anything else?
I'll make a motion.
Highway, 15,000 Main Street Bridge, is
Yeah,
that for the study?
that's actually, probably a little bit below where I should have been. If you look at a straight burn rate analysis, and that's not a great way to look at it, I should have been asking for more. Remember, they have to eat their late bills up above as well. We got lucky. I asked Bob to explore with DOT whether or not we could borrow Jersey barriers from them. They have some that they've lent us that I'm hopeful they forget about in the future. But we had to hire a trailer, go get those, get them loaded, get them back, buy a number of signs, paint lines. That whole extravaganza actually ended up costing us around $9,000 on the cheap side.
So this amount is not for proceeding with like a fix for it, this is,
Oh,
I'm afraid this was
Yeah.
just for the narrowing of
Yep.
it.
okay,
We only have a couple $1,000s left in that account as it is.
I don't have any other questions.
The bridge has been re-inspected. We're hopeful that at the fall town meeting, or with chapter 90 monies, we can maybe get an engineering study of what we could do short-term to get it reopened, and then spend time on the 5-year, $1 million fix.
Yep. I'm good, Will.
Make a motion to accept Article 2?
Well,
Recommend 4.
Yes, recommend 4.
second,
Okay, motion to recommend favorable action on Article 2 and seconded. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
and yes.
Jeff, can I put in a shameless plug for something real fast?
Yes.
June 5th, public meeting, this room on Stone Bridge. Options somewheres between $300,000 and $1 million. I do hope that, and we're gonna invite y'all, if
Okay.
you have a chance to attend.
June 5th.
June 5th, 6:30.
Article 3, fiscal 2019 supplemental special article, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $17,500 for legal services in connection with the sale of Baldermill Elementary School, planning review, support of potential zoning amendments, and negotiations of host community agreements with parties desiring to cultivate, process, and retail cannabis in the community, and to meet said appropriation by a transfer of said sum from certified free cash.
I didn't think they were gonna retail.
We, at the same time as we issued the Baldwinville request for purchasers, we had approached the select board and asked for permission to issue a request for letters of interest from the cannabis industry at large.
Okay.
We got a second proposal for retail out.
Okay, so this is not really part of the Baldwinville school, it's
No.
two different issues,
It-
okay.
It's two
Okay.
different issues, but we need money to
Sure.
pursue
Nope,
both.
nope,
We
I get
don't
it.
think we can do it.
Okay, it's
and-
just because I was on the
Yeah.
Baldwinville committee and
We
it's
just
like,
don't think we can
that's
eat
not
it
what they said.
within the normal
Nope, got
legal
it.
budget, Tony.
Got it? No,
The other thing is we wanted to have it freestanding. We thought it was, sort of the first test vote from the town meeting. Because if we can't get this done, the odds are we can't get the zoning and the sale and everything else done.
well, having reviewed the proposal, at least for the sale, if it goes through the way it was proposed, the town's gonna make their money back and then some, so.
Has there been any pushback from anybody in the neighborhood on this? I mean, I haven't heard any.
Well, we've had two questions, but on June 4, assuming this passes, we'll be having a public meeting in this room. Adam will put that together along with town council. We'll have the Baldwinville folks in, and we'll have the Royalston Farm folks in to talk about their retail location. I wouldn't say we've had any negative, and I do believe I have at least one supporter on this issue.
We had, we did have, well, it wasn't a pre-town meeting, but a special meeting that allowed abutters to come.
Right, you did a neighborhood meeting just for
Yeah,
the sale
that allowed the
itself.
butters and, I think if you read the proposal, if you didn't read the proposal, I don't think you'd even know what's going on in the building. And I thought it was a very well-done proposal and,
But it,
Well, I know you had gone through that. It was just,
yeah.
maybe something else happened.
Yeah,
after
maybe,
that.
I don't know.
We'll be having several meetings on this. We'll be as public and as process-oriented as we can.
Okay.
One other question, is that gonna be sufficient funds to cover all of this, or are we gonna,
We got an estimate from town council based upon his experience in Littleton and some other communities. We know what a regular real estate transaction negotiation, I've done, several dozen of them since my urban renewal days. We have a sense of it. We have a number of host community agreements as samples, they're fairly standard, so we're hopeful. This is our best guesstimate. I'd put it under the scientific wild arse guess as opposed to the just straight out wild arse guess.
Did you have a question, Bob?
Yeah, I just wanted confirmation, Adam mentioned something to me, and since I questioned it in public, I wanted to ask it and answer it in public. The initial funds here, when I looked initially, I didn't notice it in the budget, and then, I've been told that's been corrected.
Yes, I don't recall the timing exactly. This came up right around the time we issued one of the free cash sheets. Adam has prepared a revised one, so instead of about rolling a little over 10% over into next year, we're rolling a little bit under 10%, and he has those sheets he'll give you for your books.
That would be my
And,
question.
Perhaps he has one he can give you, Bob.
Thank you.
for a motion? I'll make a motion to approve Article 3.
Second.
If there's no other discussion.
So this sheet is basically saying that we're on glide path, that this does not negatively affect our free cash.
We had about 10.25%
usage.
of free cash we're rolling into the next year. Now it's about 9.8%. Didn't have a substantial impact
Okay.
on it.
And this-
But Bob was right. I have offered him a job as proofreader if we should ever have that opening available. But it was a good catch, and we're glad to be able to get the revised sheet out.
Okay, and just two final questions. This goes to 5,200 within the selectmen's budget for legal services?
This would be a freestanding warrant article as if it was a capital item.
Okay,
The $4,000 scholarship, the triannuals.
It's fenced.
It's fenced off in the special project, 900 section of the budget.
One other clarification that I kind of hasn't touched on, when you have a separate article like this, if it's not used in the year and it goes on, it's still there until it's used, okay? Because you still may have some things that they can end up closing up. It's like the scholarship. You may approve the scholarship under a warrant article, but they don't end up dispersing that for a while.
okay.
So the money,
I
and
understand.
same thing with the valuation, the
I
tri-valuation.
didn't understand it before, but now I do. And finally, Carter, does this amount, or does this legal action close the deal with what has been proposed, or this goes out to further explore?
No, this is intended to deal with the two proposals, Baldwinville and the other retailer.
Got it.
Should we come along, and some of that groundwork
So close it.
might actually provide an opening to others. But should others come along, we would have to deal with those within the regular legal budget. I consider this fenced around the Baldwinville School and the zoning and general HCA's.
I understand. I have no further discussion.
All right. You
I made a motion to
move for
approve.
favorable action?
Yeah.
Amy seconded
And
it.
seconded. All right, on Article 3, to recommend for favorable action. On the article, Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
Yes?
Yes.
You vote yes, Mr.
Article 4, supplemental contributions to reserve accounts to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $130,000 to make deposits into Operations and Capital Stabilization Funds, and the OPEB Reserve Account. The Operating Stabilization Fund, $92,500. The Capital Stabilization Fund, $22,500. And the OPEB Fund, $15,000. Questions?
Does this follow the guidance of the financial policy?
It does.
Okay.
And it's supplemental because we didn't have a final certified number
Right.
in the fall.
But this is part of that certified number.
Yeah, had we had originally had the 1.6 million,
Yep.
1.57, basically the sum totals of what we contributed over this meeting would have been in this neighborhood.
I'm fine.
And for the committee's information, if I might, Chair, if these appropriations are approved as requested, you will have 500, as roughly $60,000 in the operating stabilization by the end of this fiscal year. An
You said
increase of,
560, you said?
560 roughly.
Thank you.
An increase of $480,000 in 3 fiscal years. You will have a CapEx of around $130,000, and your OPEB will be in the $195,000 range. Nice, steady, sustainable
Growth.
increases.
Okay, thank you.
May.
Just a simple, a quick question, observation on this. I've had discussions with Carter on this, we both kind of know where we stand on it. But I would just, I guess, request, and this follows, I think Tony made or posed the question, whether this followed the financial policy. And if I look at B1 of the financial policies, I can't do it. I can't plug in the numbers and I can't see it working. But there's a little bit of a, interpretation in there, what you call this, what you call that. And, when Carter looks at this in the fall, or whoever's looking at it in the fall, it's, crystal ball time. It's really nice that, the stabilization, OpEx, CapEx, is increasing and is steadily, and we have a plan and we have a system. But I just think that might want to be refined amongst the Financial Advisory Committee and the Select Board. Because it does to me. It just, if you look at everything that's used for, under free cash, and you have to place 668,000 of it, my numbers, into unanticipated, extraordinary, and unplanned, I have a hard time with it. So I would just ask that, not anything with this, but as a guide for this, to look at B1 of the financial policies and maybe revise them in some fashion so that they're clearer.
I'd be happy to do that with you at any time. We can get the language up on the screen, because I think that there's a section refers to one, then there's the formula, and I think some of that's getting conflated. But Bob is right in terms of, what you take out in order to get to a base. That's a little bit of crystal ball, and, the next person could come along and assume you'll have to spend 0, and therefore take the entirety of the 50% and allocate it. But certainly be happy to sit down and look at it with this body at any time.
Jeff, when we make our recommendations and we have that little blurb, are we capturing enough? I don't know if Lee's catching some of these things, or if you're catching the nuances of why we're making these decisions, because I think that's very valid when we read these things to say, we recommend 4 because we followed, the B table for financial management processes. Are we capturing that?
I do catch the notes, and
You
I
do?
will be watching this meeting
Okay,
Again,
that's
to,
fantastic. All right.
probably a couple times, and hopefully have
I
these
think that is
out
gonna be
the door,
extremely effective.
barring any,
Yeah,
issues from members by Monday.
yeah.
Jeff was kind enough to bring the box of Joe. I appreciate that. I asked him who was bringing it. And if Sean gets the thing up early enough tonight, Jeff may be finishing off the box of Joe, watching the meeting to get these done.
Having a burger.
And having a burger.
I will be drinking something, but it won't be coffee.
Motion to accept article,
To vote favorably?
positive vote.
On Article 4, motion to recommend favorable action.
Second?
A second. On the motion, Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes. Article 5 is the consent agenda, to see if the town will vote to approve a consent agenda consisting of the following non-controversial actions or take any other action relative thereto. Such items may be voted as a block or singly or in any combination, but however voted will be treated for accounting and legislative purposes as if each item were voted as a separate article. The report of town officers, accept the reports of the town officers as printed in the 2018 Annual Town Report. Report of town committees, allow any of the town committees to present their reports to town meeting. Set annual spending limits of revolving funds. Set the annual spending limits of the town's previously created revolving funds as follows. Burial and Improvement Fund, $10,000. Recycling Fund, $10,000. Plumbing and Gas Inspector Fund, $7,500. Electrical Inspector Fund, $12,500. Community Services Fund, $10,000. Questions?
The only thing I see here that, and I look at the BVA, and we have a bunch of money that we have given inspectors and they're not using it all. That has nothing to do with this particular article, is that correct?
I'm not sure what you're referring, are
On
you
the B-
referring
on
to
On the
the,
BVA,
are you referring to the special
the special, yes.
article
That has not,
for the school?
yes,
Yeah, that was.
that has nothing to do with this particular, that's, I just wanna make sure everybody
Unrelated.
understands that.
Unrelated, other than, we do not pay the plumbing, gas, and electrical inspector out of the revolving funds. We pay it out of the special article, and we have been very fortunate to be able to carry out the inspections without a lot of callbacks. So we have not had to expend anywhere near what we thought we would.
I saw that, but that's another,
And that will flow back to free cash.
Yeah.
At the end of this fiscal year, because it was for this fiscal year only.
I'll make a motion to, if nobody has any questions, to have favorable action on this article.
Anybody have anything else down here?
I will during discussion.
No, we're discussing first, then
Oh,
vote.
okay.
Do you-
Well, he's
No,
good.
do you have a question?
So, item B, sub-item B, that means that, we could wind up inviting any town board or
That's the
committee?
choice of this community. I have not seen it in any of the others in which I've worked. In other communities, if people
Yeah,
want
it's
a
like asking
report,
for a root canal.
that. You know, I've changed a lot of things in my time here, but I've also stayed away from a lot of traditions in my time here. But yes, sir, that's exactly what it means.
To ask your question,
You
answer
can
your
vote on that
question,
separately.
there was
Vote
a
on
couple of
each
years
A, B,
that
and
we
C
actually,
separately now.
the advisory actually gave a report in a presentation about, it was about the foregoing budget or last year's.
So, and the purpose for that is to basically say, this is the annual town meeting, here's our report, if you didn't read it in the,
But it's for 2018.
right?
Once in a while, there's a committee that hasn't been in a while, but there back a ways, there had been committees that had been created to report back to town meeting. But yes, this allows any committee in the town that if they wanna report to town meeting, they can, but generally it's passed over.
Okay. I'll give Will his second.
Are we gonna vote on this as one article or three individuals?
One article.
Okay.
I believe the wording for the singular thing is when you get to town meeting, if town meeting so, wants to, one year they did.
Well, I mean,
They
but-
split it up. But it is one warrant article.
Is your request to take and break it up,
No,
Tony?
no, I was just asking a question if we were going to. I think it should be.
It also covers that should anyone challenge whether or not something should have been adopted as a standalone warrant article under a statutory requirement, that this establishes that you have in effect done that ahead of time. I mean, just also say that should anybody notice anything at any time they think could be appropriately dealt with under the consent agenda, please feel free to send me your suggestion, and I will transfer it
Okay.
next year.
So we have a motion and a second for
I made the
recommend
motion
favorable
to
action
Yep, I second it.
on Article 5. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
yes. Article 6, the Narragansett Regional School District. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $7,479,406 or some lesser amount to fund the town's assessed share of the cost of the Narragansett Regional School District for fiscal year 2020, contingent upon the passage of a ballot question pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 59, subsection 21C, G is in golf, Proposition 2.5. I checked the figure against the certification letter that we received from the school district treasurer, and it does match, so. Questions?
What does "or some lesser amount" mean in this warrant article?
If someone should stand up and say, I move to amend this amount with a reduction of 479,406, and that amendment passes, then the appropriation is $7 million. And if they have not amended the contingency, it remains contingent upon the override.
I understand what you're saying.
This has happened in the past where the school committee actually came in and made a substitute motion to lower based upon the amount of money that they were getting from the state, state funds. I mean, it wasn't cutting it in half or whatever, but they did reduce it, so that can happen, per se, by them
Right.
also. My only comment is, as you've heard me say before, I wish that between the town and the school, we could have lowered both of those to take and lower the amount of the override. It would have been probably, I understand that there would have been an override, but it might have been more acceptable to, if it can end up getting approved. I don't, my sense is, I don't know if this will be approved for that level based upon the real estate tax impact.
Well, with respect, sir, those discussions need to happen in January, February.
I understand that.
March, before they certify the number. Once they certify the number, and Jeff, some of you attended some of those meetings. I don't think we were shy about trying to push the number down. But those discussions have to happen prior to their certification. Once they certify that number,
You have,
I mean, I don't wanna really belabor this, but remember, they did present us with about 6 different options, and they didn't pick the lowest, they didn't pick the highest. So I think that they made an effort,
you just,
depends on
I
whether you
think
believe it was
that
hard
this
enough.
year's process in terms of hitting timelines was the best that I've seen in the several years I've been
Yep.
here. They don't have to produce a budget till March 31. And by then, we're really up against it.
I think we could spend a little bit of time on this, because I think, the community looks to us to say, all right, here, this is the big one. This is the one that's causing a lot of our issues. So as we talk through this, I want to approach it from like whatever contingencies could happen. we're gonna make a recommendation tonight, and then it's gonna be read at town meeting. What are people going to listen to? They're already upset because this is gonna make the if it is contingent on the override and it does get voted in, they understand what that means. So I think we need to make a recommendation and look at the contingencies of what could happen. So, you know, my first question was or some lesser amount. If that does happen where someone winds up saying, I want 988,000 less, and I don't wanna go through this. I want to be able to have that discussion of why it would be a bad idea to reduce that amount.
You would have it at town.
How many teachers, what is the
So
standing?
just, let me just, if I might.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just so you understand the process, okay, and I've given you all, I think, a fairly lengthy memo on
You
this.
did.
If town meeting reduces the number, they don't have to accept the number.
Oh.
They still get to come back in and recertify something else,
Mhm.
okay? So if the override does not pass, just so you understand, that means we have to have a special town meeting. In this community, that takes upwards of 40 days as opposed to 18 in many other communities. So in order to try to shave some time off that timeline, to be able to move as expeditiously as possible, we are requesting that the select board on the 8th open a warrant for a possible special in June or July. So I don't have to wait the whole 40 days. The fallback position, if the overrides do not pass, is a new budget from the school district that would still require an increase of about $235,000 above what we have budgeted for, that 2.5%
Yep.
that we'll ask for, which means we have to go back in and skin out of our budget roughly $195,000. That is 19 positions that have to be eliminated. 4 of those are new positions that were planned based upon all the various presentations we attended. 15 are current live bodies. I don't know the breakdown of support staff versus psych staff versus teaching staff, but it's 19 positions, and it is effectively moving all pre-K through 5 into Templeton Center School. All pre-K through 5 from both communities into Templeton Center Schools. Then there are all that's the very easily stated quantitative result. Then there is the negative spiral down that happens when classroom sizes get a little bit larger. The chatter, the marketing, the school choice impact, all of that kind of thing. I can't quantify that for you, but we know that kind of negative spin can happen off of those kinds of contractions in any organization.
And the school did have, and I saw you, did have informational meetings. They were looking for input from citizens. They canceled a few meetings they had because I went to one and it was myself and one other resident. And that was an opportunity, you could almost have a one-on-one with the superintendent and ask about anything on the budget and say, hey, what about this? How about that? What does this mean? I mean, it was not like going to a big meeting where somebody might be intimidated. You were sitting there, almost one-on-one. And the joint meeting they had to start things off with, it was very sparsely attended. A couple other follow-up meetings, and then these small meetings that they had, and they were looking for people to show up and and talk about this and try to make their case, before we get to this point. And
To convince them or to solicit ID? Yeah.
both, to say, why, like the resident that came, he's asked, what happens if this fails, Well, how come it's so much? And they went down through the line, blah, blah, blah. He went over the 1/12 budget and what happens at the joint meeting and then December and all of that.
Right.
And that was, like I said, that's like a one-on-one for that town resident. And they tried to have a few more and they just canceled them because nobody's showing
Yeah.
up.
All roads lead to ruin. in this situation.
It's just, I mean, it's a big dollar amount. I thought people would have went and asked questions and stuff, and I don't know what the answer is, but the opportunity was there for people to go and ask, and I just,
The reason I had said about cutting is the limited amount of feedback that I have gotten from different folks is that some people were saying that they had originally been for the school, but they were not happy with the amount for the override. It wasn't told to me by them whether they would vote for or against. Being unhappy and voting one way or the other,
Yeah, it's two different things, though. Building a new school.
I totally understand that, and I did try to clarify that with some folks as to where they stood,
Yeah.
that they can help me make a decision here.
Yeah.
And
Our Facebook page, someone had made a comment about how can we go and get all this money for the school and still be short? And, I offered a lot of the data points that we've, I think everybody, the school, the TA, the Board of Selectmen, this committee has offered that to say these are not, they may be related because it's a school, but it's a completely different issue.
while you.
I'd written some notes on pretty much all this stuff. I would recommend approval as a last resort. It's budget time right now. I think the state Senate's going through their budget process right now. They're in deliberations. I had sent Senator Goby, I'll take all the transportation money you can possibly muster, with your colleagues, and otherwise realizing that also can reduce, what we're planning for in transportation is approximately how much percentage? It's like 30, maybe even less.
It depends on how you look at it, whether you look at it as total or you look at it as a percentage of
Percentage, yeah.
regular ed.
Less than 50.
There's regular ed and then there's special. It's less than 50% of the total. It reaches into the upper 60s, low 70s on the regular ed. But in any event, it is far short what the community's expected when
Right,
they
so
were.
I've asked her, I said, whatever you can do to try and, it may be late in the game, but again, anything to do to offset some of this cost.
And I don't want to lose sight of, we're talking about now, we're talking about May 15 and May 20. Even if these pass on May 22, the two finance committees, the two select boards, the school committee, need to get together and start to deal with a long-term approach to this issue. Whether it's greater regionalization, I don't know what the answers are, but the formula, I've been through the math with you all a dozen times. It's straight math, and it doesn't work, not for the local communities. It simply doesn't work, because we're getting so little from the state in terms of aid, and we have to eat the entirety. So even when their budget only goes up 3%, we still end up having to increase our assessments 8, 9, and 10%.
Because what can happen is that this passes at annual town meeting, and at the ballot, it's rejected. Or, I've seen that in the past. It is what it is.
The good thing is,
Against
people
them.
may not like our plan, but we have a plan, we have a stopgap, we know what that plan is, and we are working to be ready to move forward as expeditiously as we can with our partners in Phillipston and at the school district.
My sense is this is too much for the town to approve, in my gut feeling. I don't know that for a fact, but I see that we need to end up having some type of additional monies to take and open that school. What the actual number that the town will accept is, I don't know. I don't think it, from what I'm hearing, it's not this number.
You have to open the school. It's gonna cost you more to not open it.
I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just telling you where folks head out from what I've heard back.
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to pass on a little information that seems a little relevant to what's being discussed here, is, I watched the, school committee meeting, which was, I think, yesterday.
Yeah.
Which was the presentation of their audit. So it was more interesting than I thought it would be. And I would suggest that anybody interested watch it, because it gives a different picture than I expected. I expected more doom and gloom, and they got more roses and flowers than I expected. The thing that struck me as a resident in the situation that we're in, and I'm a picky person, but one of the recommendations from the audit house, and it's came across as it was multiple years in a row, was for them to go to a bi-weekly payroll. And the discussion was such that it came across as it was a resistance for convenience factor, when it was, the auditor was saying about how much of a large savings it was.
They do pay bi-weekly.
This is what they were talking about.
Okay.
I mean, I have no idea.
They're bi-weekly. Now, maybe not the entire district is, but.
Yeah, I'm just, what they're saying.
And just so people are aware, because the state does not do what they said they were going to do when we regionalized, Templeton has to pay $780,287 towards the transportation cost, and that's up a little over $100,000 from the previous year.
Well, then I would certainly recommend that citizens write their senators
That's what,
and
exactly what I
and
said.
congressmen and say, hey, I know you did, but
Yeah.
that
Targeting the transportation to say,
look,
this is killing us.
this is the deal that's supposed to be made, you're not holding your end up. In small communities like ours, it's very difficult to absorb that.
And our minimum contribution went up a couple $100,000 as the state tries to nudge
Taxes keep
everybody
going up,
to,
that's gonna go down.
whatever their target, which is basically what they feel this town can afford. It's, the thing to do is for all the towns and the schools to get together and really just have to hammer the legislature. It's, in the meantime, it's,
Some
you
communities have
pass
already
this,
tried
you
that.
make a deal, or you go down that 1/12th road, and that's not a fun road to go down, but.
We're doing our best to avoid it, Jeff. We're really, again, people may not like our plan, but the superintendent, Mr. Flynn, and myself spent a lot of time trying to come up with a plan to make sure that we have a budget by July 1.
And again, these numbers have been put out there, and they were meetings, and perhaps more people watched than I realized, but the questions were, at any meeting, were not there. I mean,
Make a motion that the committee vote favorably for Article 6.
Second.
Article 6, to recommend favorable action. Nothing else? Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
No.
I really hate to do this, but it's the lesser of two evils. Yes.
What was the vote, Mr. Chairman?
5-1.
5-1?
5 yes, 1 no.
Thank you.
On this next one, Mr. Chairman, I recommend waiving reading the
I
entire
was going
article.
to suggest, we could each take a
mean,
paragraph and we'll be done by 8:30 maybe.
So since it's a pre-town meeting, I mean, everybody has it in front of them, I don't.
You can give a quick, like, what it is.
Yeah.
Article
Yeah.
7 is amending the bylaws of the trench bylaw, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Almost
Basically
six-
5
almost
pages,
6
6 pages long.
And it's one of the shorter ones.
It's on
It's
the
amending,
website.
it's not adding.
You can read it if you wish, people. Like I said, we'd be here till like 8:30 reading that thing.
Can we just have a synopsis of what was changed? I mean, just so that we have read what's changed, and not the whole thing, but
Yeah.
just the changes.
I read through it,
It's a trench.
and it, you know, it's about digging. It's about commercial digging, and what happens if you know, how much you gotta pay, what happens if you do it wrong,
And this is one of those
not
ones,
about residential.
Jeff, if I might, that goes to Mr. May's point. So this one, you adopted the trench bylaw,
Right.
and then you submit them to the Attorney General's office. You got his review back, but it was never dealt with. That's not really general code's job, to rewrite our ordinances for that. So that's when you have to reach out to town council to do that. So basically, this is as it was presented, but addressing the concerns of the Attorney General. That's the simplest way, and it's about digging and trenches.
Mr. Chair, could I just make one observation here? On the article here, first line, to see if the town will vote to amend section LBX. I believe that's article LBX, and I'm not sure that the LBX is the accurate number either. Because I could only find up to, I think, 67 or whatever on the website.
How does that pertain to the codification reference to this?
So, what town council did was, they felt that there were some, that codification should be essentially for the renumbering, commas, semicolons, creating Scrivener's errors, putting things in that perhaps had been, deleted by mistake, and that for larger changes, that they didn't want to have people think, aha, you used the codification to try to slip through all these changes. He felt they should be taken out. So there are some, for instance, the wireless communication, when you get to, it's basically repeated its entirety. We're taking it out of the general, moving it to the zoning. So town council, in discussion with the town clerk, agreed some that they just thought should be handled as standalone by themselves. So the codification passes. Whatever these pass gets added to that, it all goes to the Attorney General's office.
So basically, it comes out.
At the end of the day, it comes out as one single document.
Okay.
Once it's back from the Attorney General's office.
It gets renumbered when they.
Yes.
Oh, right, I just wanna make sure that the article itself doesn't state, section something.
No, we'll double check, and I
Yep.
appreciate that. We follow through on Bob's,
Yep, they do.
so Adam, if you can just make that note, we'll get that out to Tom in the morning. We have a conference call with council Tuesday morning, and then we have council coming out that night, so that I can get any changes from him to make part of the official motions that we put into the voters' information guide. And then the following morning, the 8th, by then I will have everything from you all. I'll have everything for the voters' guide, I'll have everything from town council, and off to the printer. Onto the website it'll go, and off to the printer.
Make a motion to vote favorably on this article.
Second.
All right, and just a note, if bylaw passes at town meeting, it doesn't mean that it's not really in effect or pass until the Attorney General returns its thing back, because
And the clerk has posted it in several locations identified in statute. If the clerk fails to do that, notwithstanding the fact that the Attorney General's office returned it to you, it still is not in effect.
Okay.
And Adam's remembering all this stuff every day.
Article 7.
Burger for that.
Article 7, to recommend favorable action. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
yes. Article 8, amending the bylaws, non-criminal disposition. To see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws of the town of Templeton by striking Article 27 and inserting in its
37.
place. And this
37.
is 1,
Yep.
2,
It's, I think it doesn't matter, it's fine.
4, 5, yeah, 5.5.
This one's about 8 pages long.
It's-
More white space on the pages, but it's still 8 pages
it's
long.
that.
I jotted down a couple of questions. What are we replacing?
So there's a very short one paragraph right now, which basically gives the Board of Health the authority to enforce their fines through non-criminal disposition. Doesn't give
Civil.
anybody else, civil,
Civil complaints.
non-criminal. You write a ticket,
This further enumerates,
and this does a couple of things. The first thing is that it spreads that authority across every entity who has responsibility for enforcing
enforcement.
any of the bylaws.
Yep.
It then spells out in conformance with statute, all of the conditions of how that gets done, whereas your current one paragraph does not do that. It then collects all of the various more specific enumeration of the bylaws, who the enforcing agent is, and what those fines are, in one clearer, more comparable area.
Is it more comprehensive than what we have now?
Substantially. Right now, it's only the Board of Health that truly has
Yeah.
the ability to enforce some of their regulations.
So I saw that this gives wide authority to fine offenders from a wide but appropriate base of enforcement, as you just described. I guess one theme that I saw was, we talk about bylaws, and I think that's a good thing, you know, if we have bylaws for health. The part that I wanted to have discussion on was, open quote, any violation of, ellipsis, rule or regulation, end quote. That's what I looked at. Does this include the Board of Selectmen's, regulations and/or policy? It seems very sweeping to me to say
It would depend, so
rule.
for instance, if I might, on page 12,
Yep.
if you look at the Board of Health, okay? The Board of Health has some very specific bylaw responsibilities with respect to property maintenance, paragraph B, with respect to dogways, paragraph C, with respect to wells under statute, chapter 272.
Uh-huh.
But they also have the ability to prohibit smoking and do some other things, okay? With respect to the selectmen, we're really talking here about rules and regulations adopted for the use of town property and some of the other things. We're not talking about somebody violates the financial management policy by the way they make a calculation. If you think that there's some sort of clarification on that, we'll certainly bring that to town council's attention. And let's make sure that he addresses that Tuesday night, Adam, in the meeting here.
My brain went where you thought it would go, which is just, minor violations where it winds up becoming more of a petty, I'm gonna get you on that.
Well, I mean, it's intended,
Number
let's say, it's-
2A.
let's say it's a selectman, posted the back parking lot, no overnight parking. Or they posted a section, overnight parking here, because we need the plows to come through along the fence and, get in and get out. But they have some neighbors that they want to allow to park. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. And we'll have town council address it Tuesday evening.
Okay, and so if the Board of Selectmen is the enforcer, in areas of their, that are within their purview for enforcement, does the Board of Selectmen then have to vote to do that? To
No,
pose
they
a
can
civil-
designate somebody to
Okay.
enforce it.
So would you normally be the designee for
Normally, I
that?
would, normally, so if it's this building, normally it would be the town administrator or the public works, whoever's
Yep.
responsible for buildings. If it's, let's say the town common, the parks, it would normally be the public works director, because that's
Okay.
where buildings and grounds is. It would normally flow to who's primarily carrying out that particular rule or regulation.
And I suppose I asked that question leading with the Board of Selectmen, because you're talking about a body of 5 people.
Yeah.
That if one person had a mean bone in their body, they would be able to cover for themselves, and there'd be some checks and balances to make sure someone didn't abuse this civil infraction system of fines.
Yeah,
Or-
that's
or
why it
they
says
have
we're
to go to court. I
designate.
mean, you have to you have to go to the court and either confess your sins, or you can ask for a trial. I read through the whole thing, and I tried to war game through how can we check ourselves for that? And you're answering the questions pretty quickly, so I think you've given it a lot of thought too.
Well, I've been down this road a couple
Okay.
towns.
They just can't go up and say we're fining you $50. Just can't go up to someone and say we're fining you $50.
Mr. Chairman?
Right, and I wanted to
Yeah.
prevent against
Yeah.
that.
Right,
Yeah, I
right.
see. Anybody else on the committee?
Yeah, I have one question. Does this all conform to Mass General Law statutes already, some of this? I mean, I've checked some of these, I haven't, obviously, there's a lot to check here.
It should, and it's drawn from 2 other communities in which I suggested town council looked, because he really liked sort of the pulling everything into this section, so you could really see where everything was. Yes, they're over there in the bylaws, but then you pull them into this section, so it's really pretty easy to identify.
I want to make sure that
There
they're,
is a section, not all entities participated in the review process. There is a section on the water, where we will be coming back in the fall. I think we're short on time to try it. Page 17.
Water use?
Water use, the general manager for the municipal light and water plan is not sure that he really would have the police department enforce that. This is kind of a drive-by issue. If he doesn't want it, then so be it, but we'll probably deal with it at the fall, just because it's gonna be a lot cleaner to do it then.
So, follow-up question. Again, you used land use, so agency comes to the Board of Selectmen, they want to use the town common. They don't, they do a horrible job, they don't pick up the trash or otherwise, so they're basically in the realm of a civil infraction. They contest it. Does Templeton then, they don't confess their sins, they basically bring it, they're fighting it. Do we then have to expend additional dollars to get town council to represent the town once that we've sent it to the magistrate? Does it go to Worcester? You understand where I'm
It
going?
would go most likely to Gardner.
Okay, so it goes to Gardner, we then have to represent ourselves,
Yeah.
would that,
Yeah.
would we just drop it? Would we have to get town council, or would the Parks and
I don't
Recreation?
drop it. So let me, I don't wanna
I think it's good-
protract
it's
this,
good
but
to go
let's,
through
let's
it.
assume that they had a permit to use the town common first. Then we would go after them, for violation and the costs, of cleaning all that up, which is a straight small claims, court action, because they've signed agreement to do certain things. They violate that agreement, we send them the bill, they don't pay the bill, we're just going straight to small claims. We're not going through all this nonsense.
I understand.
Now, they come in, they apply for a permit, and we say no, and, Monday morning, we come in, and somebody's on, Bob Sochik's there saying, I got a flippin' mess on my hands, because they went ahead and did it anyways. Then we're gonna write them a ticket, plus send them a bill, then would go through the process at the district court level. The odds are we would not involve town council, that's the whole point of this.
Okay.
Depending
you.
upon the severity of the issue, who's involved, might we? Depends on what their reaction, that we have to play by ear as it happens.
Yeah.
I have some that I have questions on, as far as enforcement. One of, this is under the police department, skateboards and roller skating. Well, I mean, we just got rid of the skateboard park. I mean, and that, I hate to take and see us go after a young kid for that, when we've taken away the opportunity to take and end up doing it when we put the new school. The other is, on a yearly basis, as we are all aware of, fireworks do happen in this community. Do we go after public citizens that, on a yearly basis, different sections of town? I won't, here in East Templeton, as everybody is aware, if you live in the housing, you can end up seeing the fireworks that are displayed around one particular body of water. I mean, we haven't done that before, and there's a state statute. I mean, I'm concerned that we see these, but are we going to create more issues? And then I look at another one, rude and indecent speech. Rude and indecent speech, that's
Subjective.
very
so there's
subjective.
gotta
That
be
also would have been a great
discretion.
discussion at the time of adopting the bylaw. All we have done is taken the bylaws, for the most part, as far as I know, is taken the bylaws that existed. If somebody wants to revisit those bylaws, I would suggest that the fall would be a much better time to do that. But going after this section, even if you take it out of here, still leaves it over there. It leaves it uncodified, it leaves it out of sight.
Not only this
That doesn't
section,
eliminate the
not only
bylaw.
this section, Carter, is that if we put these in, how enforceable are they? Are we gonna enforce them? We have done a terrible job of enforcing different things in the past. I mean, we had citizens come, and he wanted us to enforce the bylaw on having junk on a property, and it was turned down at town meeting. I mean, this is, and we had one on the statute already. And I mean, I saw members of the town, elected officers, vote against what this gentleman was trying to get. He was trying to get us to enforce the law, and we kind of snubbed our nose at him.
Well, the History Channel is not my favorite channel. I can only tell you that if you want to revisit the bylaws that exist, I suggest that you do that on a section-by-section basis in the fall, to try to revisit bylaws or concerns about do we enforce, don't we enforce. At this juncture, in this section, I think has a lot of,
So,
really a lot of problems.
so I look at it this way, this bylaw is written the way it is. You can either agree with it or disagree with it.
Well, it's to Will's point, it's about discretion and enforcement. Those are your issues.
That's,
I'm sorry. I know you wants to go.
Enforceability, really,
Right,
yeah.
Chairman, it's about more than that. This law, the governing law is chapter 40, 21D. And on page 17, under the police, M and N, say fine allowed of $500 for each offense. In chapter 40, section 21D, only allows for a fine for any bylaw up to $300. So the statute on itself doesn't seem to hold water.
That's why I asked about
I
Mass
have the
General laws.
statute right here, it's chapter 40, 21D, and as you can see right here, it states just in this section here, right up the top, that, you know, anybody who, like Mike said, confesses his sins can go in and pay $300 maximum penalty. And that's that.
Yeah, in the warrant, it says on page 11, any person notified to appear before the clerk of the district court may so appear and confess the offense charged either personally or through a duly authorized agent or by mailing to the town clerk such specific sum of money not exceeding $300 as provided in the bylaw, rule, or regulation which has been violated. So it's got kind of like, there's the fail-safe right there. Even though below on, what'd you say, 17?
Yes.
Yeah,
M&N.
Yeah.
M&N on page 17.
So we've got a little bit of conflict there.
We'll speak to town council, make sure he addresses it Tuesday
Roger
night.
that.
I've made
Okay.
that note. Thank you,
Yep.
Bob.
Sure.
Teamwork.
Yep.
I have no further
I
comments.
have nothing.
Mr. Chair, I propose a motion to vote in favor or
Favorably.
recommend for Article 8, amending bylaws, non-criminal disposition.
The state statute says $500. The state fine.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Disposition, it's max 300.
All right, on Article 8, motion and a second to recommend for favorable action
Right, but it's still a bylaw. It's the same. Yep.
on this article.
Do we, because of that, the thing that we highlight, should I change the, I mean, there's just some inconsistencies in the language in it.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you get to 9 and 10, you're gonna see the 500 versus 300 as well. I can't answer that question tonight. I have to
Okay,
refer
just-
that to town council.
I feel confident in the way that it's written, whether, even if it has the 500 in there, the bylaw says that, and the Mass General Law,
We
21B,
can
says that that's the maximum you can
put a
charge somebody.
statement in here about what the law says.
I agree.
Yes, I
and,
agree.
I agree.
you know,
So I'd like to keep the
Suggest
motion the
that-
same.
right, and town meeting consider
clarification.
amending it, and they can do as they please.
Yep.
Because our recommendations are non-binding. They can follow them, they
Yep.
can tell us to go fly
Well,
a
It
kite.
gives them,
get you
it gives them that
Yes.
mindset, so if you have someone like Mr. May sitting in the audience, be like, I know that
They
we
can
can
get
make
it.
that consideration.
So I can make that notation
one like
under,
you,
the-
I guess.
under the recommendation.
We can hope.
And we'll get you a follow-up memo from
Okay.
council.
Thank you.
Every each item.
All right, on the motion to recommend favorable action, Article 8. Mike,
Yes,
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
No, only because there's contradictions.
I will make an amended motion. I will vote yes and notate amended motion suggested. Article 9, amending the bylaws, alcohol open container, to see if the town will vote to amend Article 25 of the bylaws to add Section 2 to read as follows. No person shall, upon any way or in any place in which the public has a right of access, or upon any way or in any place to which members of the public have access as invitees or licensees, possess an open container of alcohol in the passenger area of any motor vehicle. A person who violates this section shall be punished by a civil penalty of not more than $500. For purposes of this section, open container shall mean that the package containing alcohol has its seal broken or from which the contents have been partially consumed or fully consumed. Passenger area shall mean the area designated to seat the driver and passengers while the motor vehicle is in operation, and any area that is readily accessible to the driver or passenger while in a seated position. Provided, however, that the passenger area shall not include a motor vehicle's trunk, locked glove compartment, or the living quarters of a house coach or house trailer, or if a motor vehicle is not equipped with a trunk, the area behind the last upright seat, or an area not normally occupied by the driver or passenger. And I take to read that as like a pickup truck or something to that effect.
Exactly.
So I think,
questions?
so I think there's the issue of the 500 versus
There
300.
is, and we'll get you an answer on that.
Yep, that's my concern, is that it's not consistent here.
So, my concern with that is, I fully understand, like, the spirit of that. You don't want people drinking while driving, obviously. Something that, weekend happens, I have a party, I take a six-pack, I throw it in my back seat to bring back to the store. Technically, I'm in violation of that.
You're in violation of state statute already, and you can be written up as a criminal citation. if
So is that state law?
That is the choice. So the, was written, actually grew out of Article 10. Article 10 comes out of the statute, and it was recommended by the state that local communities adopt a local bylaw so they could write tickets under this provision. Once that was done and council went back into the body of our bylaws, he realized we didn't have a parallel one with alcohol. So that's when he suggested Article 9, so that we had one on the marijuana, one on the alcohol. This also, that's to mirror statute upon the recommendation of the state
Mhm.
to mirror the other substance on Article 9. It thus also gives the local police the authority to enforce this as non-criminal citations and not to be money grubbing, but anything that's written as a non-criminal citation
The town can-
comes to the town. Anything that's written as a criminal state traffic violation goes to the courts. We get a percentage of it. So it allows a softer touch, and it allows some revenue to the town.
But I think to follow a little bit with what Lee was saying is, if you're just going someplace to return some empties,
Oh, empties, no, they're completely empty, that's not a problem there.
No, but no.
That's not what it says.
That's not what it says,
Not the
though.
fact either. I've been there. Excuse me, sorry for the
Six-pack,
interruption.
the seal isn't
A
broken.
package
A
containing
six-pack that you're bringing back,
alcohol.
the seal is absolutely broken.
well, it says
I don't
containing
understand that.
But
alcohol,
it's no
Or
longer
from
contains
which the
alcohol.
contents have been partially or fully
Or fully
consumed.
consumed.
fully consumed means it's empty.
It's
I've been
empty.
charged with it 25,
That-
30 years ago.
I don't know what to tell you, I take bottles back to the bottle redemption center all the time, and I've never heard of
Absolutely.
anyone getting a ticket.
So again, I fully agree with the spirit
Right.
of the law, but per the last conversation that we're having about the previous article, it would be nice if there was some way to put in there, and I've been thinking about this for days about some wording, I have not come up with anything, but some way where if you're simply returning empties, that you would not be in violation of this article, which, the way it's worded, you
I mean,
would be.
because theoretically, and I'll just use Patriots, I could pull into Patriots, police officer could pull behind me,
Absolutely.
and I'm not saying that our police in this town would do that, and I
No,
totally
no,
agree.
no,
know
but
what
then
I'm
you
saying?
take your
Totally
empties
agree.
out of your back seat,
Yeah,
Yeah.
or your kid is sitting next to the empties,
yeah.
and you've just violated it. It's just a discussion. Yeah.
Again, yes, it's
I
just
mean,
a discussion.
I have confidence
Picking
in
them up off
our
the floor,
I have
you
police
confidence,
department
yeah.
that they have
Garbage
good
bag.
discretion, so.
I'll raise the issue with council
Yeah.
for Tuesday
What-
evening. Any officer that has a complaint filed against them because you were being environmentally responsible, I'm sure would be looked at askance by the chief, but we'll raise the question.
And
We were
again,
recouping our 30 cents.
right, I
This
fully
is-
agree with
we
the
are
spirit
budget
of what
conscious.
this is trying to do. Just, we want to make sure that we cover all the bases here, so.
Mr. May?
I just want to mention one thing that's been mentioned in Athol and that's been promoted in the paper, that people are starting to look at this law for something that I ran into on Earth Day. I have 1,300 feet of frontage on my property, and I went out and picked up 3 garbage bags of mostly beer cans and pint bottles that are thrown out of cars
Sure.
driving by my house, specifically due to the open bottle law.
Yeah.
Because it's a $250 fine for littering, and it's a loss of license, a $500 fine, and all this stuff for the beer can being in your car. That's the disagreement that I have with the open bottle law. I understand the concept, and I disagree with drinking and driving. I don't drink myself. And I find it disgusting picking up 3 bags of somebody else's trash on my property.
It's even worse on Hubbardston Road because of the amount of traffic.
Amen,
I'm
brother.
always cleaning up that.
All right, let's not,
Get your kids
but
out
it is,
there and get 5 cents a bottle.
it's one of the
So,
fallouts of an open container law on the
Yeah.
state level or the town. It's,
so, I mean, to me, the spirit, I understand the spirit.
Correct.
Is it captured? I'll make a motion to vote favorably, providing that, the TA, can come back and address the $500 versus $300 fine.
We will ask council to look at the other question as well for you.
Second. I think when you make that motion, it's basically you're specifying the language in which we read that out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it shows up at town meeting, I mean, I'll
Yeah,
get up
maybe,
there and
it
say
may,
something.
even after the fact, maybe Carver takes care of it ahead of time,
Yep.
but it's basically reviews the process by
Yep.
which we, yeah.
I mean, I would end up liking to see the actual motion on the floor that's gonna be against this. You can end up having that 500 wrong, but if the motion spells out the actual amount, I could go along with that. But the way it's written now, without a motion, I'll tell you right now, I'm going to vote no, because of the conflict. Not that I'm against the law, it's the conflict.
I understand.
Mhm.
Well, that's why when I made the motion, I made it with the proviso of it being corrected.
The way this goes
So
is
if
the
that said-
actual
So if that said
motions.
300, you'd be fine
That's
with
the
it?
warrant.
If we had that, it's 300, yes.
Okay.
But the way it's written here, I have to take it into making my recommendation to the community based upon what I see here.
The way this goes is I actually send all of the motions to town council by Monday morning. I will yellow highlight everything coming out of tonight and ask him if I have it correct. He and I conference call Tuesday, I make changes, he comes out Tuesday night, and then we try to put it to bed.
Because here's what can end up in my mind, okay? If it's submitted to the council, it goes through and it gets a motion that I see when I get into annual town meeting, and it actually says 300. At that particular time, it's possible to poll this committee, and you would probably see my vote change.
Okay.
But the way it's written here, I have to vote on that.
That's fine. You vote however your conscience
Yeah.
makes you, feels you have to vote.
And if you can see if there's any way to have a particular carve-out for empties. Like, so, and again,
I'll ask him.
I know that sounds,
again, I would
but
capture.
again, you know,
I would place
So-
in a few lines, advising town meeting of the fact of the $500 fine conflicting with state law 15. The law, the bylaw as it in its whole is good and fine. The dollar amount, maybe town meeting amends it and says, let's do this.
Yeah, I
But I
agree with
mean,
what Will's saying.
Somebody,
In,
and they got empties in there, then they can find themselves.
yeah.
It's not for, like you and I returning
if
empties.
it said 300, it wouldn't be even an issue. So if we know to town meeting in our recommendation that, make them aware of that fact. And they can
I know.
do
I
what
don't-
they
There
will.
can be a, I mean, it's pretty short. You can do a substitute, someone can do a substitute motion.
Mhm.
All right,
No, you're right.
anything else on Article 9? Okay.
I know what you're
We have
saying.
recommendation, motion?
Yeah, they did for
Tony
Made a
made the
motion
recommendation,
for-
I
Yep.
provided a second.
All right. Article 9, recommend favorable action. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
No,
Lee,
No.
Will.
No.
too, though. I understand your point.
No.
So I think then it would flip, it recommend against with your vote is 4 against 2.
Right, and it needs to
Yeah,
be
he'll figure all
clarified.
that out after when he.
Okay.
It needs to be clarified.
Yeah, he'll write that all out, we'll see
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Article 10, amending bylaws, marijuana open container, to see if the town will vote to amend. And this says section, I believe it should say Article 12, but to its general bylaws to add section 6 to read as follows. Possession of marijuana in motor vehicles, no person shall, upon any way or in any place in which the public has a right of access, or upon any way or in any place to which members of the public have access as invitees or licensees, possess an open container of marijuana or marijuana products in the passenger area of any motor vehicle. A person who violates this section shall be punished by a civil penalty of not more than $500. For purposes of this section, open container shall mean that the package containing marijuana or marijuana products has its seal broken, or from which the contents have been partially removed or consumed. In passenger area shall mean the area designated to seat the driver and passengers while a motor vehicle is in operation, and any area that is readily accessible to the driver or passenger while in a seated position, provided however that the passenger area shall not include a motor vehicle's trunk, locked glove compartment, the living quarters of a house coach, house trailer, or a motor vehicle is not equipped with a trunk, the area behind the last upright seat, or in an area not normally occupied by the driver or passenger. Questions?
Does anybody know what the state law regarding this is?
I believe this mirrors the state law.
I guess,
Mr. May?
Hi, Mr. Chairman. Couple things, pretty simply, and I'll see what I can say here, but, like you said, the first part of it says to see if the town will vote to amend section 12. Like you said, I believe it's supposed to be article, but I don't believe it's 12, because I think 12 is sand and gravel. Not sure, but I believe that's the case. Now, I just want to make a comment as a citizen on this, if you don't mind. Despite the $500 issue, I think this should be put in the rubbish. It is impossible to manage, as the CCC stated when they said about towns mimicking the state law. They said they did not know how to implement. And the reason they probably don't know how to implement is because there's no means to check what is above 2.5% THC with the officer at the car looking at the bag. Because hemp is legal at 3% and above, and the law on marijuana says 2.5%. Even the law that is governing this from Massachusetts says 2.5% or above. So without the ability to even determine whether or not it's hemp, whether it's marijuana, whether it's above 3%, whether it, because any product derived from hemp is legal under federal law and state law. And
not under
yes, because it's not marijuana. Under the Farm Bill 2018, hemp,
Okay,
3%.
yep, no, I'm sorry,
Sorry, I just know this stuff.
can't imagine why.
I can. But it just seems like a further abuse of a marijuana user, and today's marijuana user, more likely than not, is 55 and over. That's the largest growing population of marijuana use in the country. And they mostly use CBDs, which are indeterminable, and would just be determined after the person has been stopped, harassed, car searched, and impeded on their merry way.
So the issue I have is the fact that it's legal, there's now edibles. I mean, you hope someone's not gonna go, and you have to transport it from wherever you buy it. And if you happen to consume some at your house, I don't know that there's any law saying that you can't take them and go to somebody else's house for a party or whatever. Well, that is, and I'm not sure that I agree with that, I mean, you don't want someone just consuming it all, so.
How can you tell the difference between a cookie that has it and a cookie
Exactly.
that doesn't?
Well, you
It's
can't,
passion to see.
and that's a whole different issue. I mean, it's relevant, but it's a bigger issue.
Yeah, I think, well, I'll speak for myself. I certainly don't want impaired drivers on the road. But to your point of implementation and, yeah, I don't even know how you would enforce that.
I don't,
How does this,
I-
how does this
I'm confused
bylaw
with that.
article have anything to do with, it's an open container?
Well, that's another thing. What does an open container mean within the context of a plant that you can now grow in your home legally
Yeah,
and bring it to a friend's house? What does an open container mean then?
yeah.
It's
It
not like you're buying it in-
doesn't address whether you've actually consumed it.
Correct.
It addresses that you
Right.
have an open container.
Yes, and I think these laws, or these articles, are trying to get to the consumption and impairment aspect. I just don't think that they
I think
do it.
I think the spirit of them
The spirit,
is
absolutely.
very noble
Yes.
and it's there, but
Completely
I
agree.
think that there's,
I just think they need some work.
yeah.
Yes.
Is a Ziploc bag considered an open container?
That's a great question. I have no
I
idea.
mean,
I don't know.
I mean,
Well, I don't know how you buy
I
it
don't
from
fit the
a-
over 55 population.
Single malt scotch, I know, ask me about this
Yeah, I
stuff, I know nothing.
Yeah, me too, I'm the same way.
And I know we're not, we like every other town probably in Massachusetts is gonna struggle with this for a while
Right.
until, so, again, the spirit, I totally agree with. I think that maybe this is more of a fall town meeting
Yeah,
thing
I
where we can
You know, this
work on
committee
the
can make,
language a little bit better.
What this committee's done before is that we make no recommendation. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up or
Yeah.
a thumbs down. We've done that in the past where the advisory committee has no recommendation.
But I think we're
A lot of
agreeing
thi-
that this is sort of vague.
You still have to make a recommendation, one way or the other.
We could have a no
Doesn't do
recommendation
it, has, I
because of
mean,
the,
does it have to do with money?
this, and this.
It doesn't have to do with money, it says that we have to make recommendations.
Okay.
And we have no recommendation,
Our recommendation,
whichever.
It's me-
It's the Mueller report.
I mean, I've seen them do in the past, Will.
yeah.
That, you know, for whatever reason, I've seen the advisory, like when we talk about fluoridation in an hour from now or whenever, you know, we feel compelled to talk about it or not. I've seen the advisory board before say, we don't wanna make a determination, or we
On a
don't, we have
citizen's
no, yeah.
petition. don't think
But
it should.
I don't know, maybe you're right, maybe we do
We
need
were
to
in
speak
error,
up.
let's put it this way, we found out we were in error by doing some of that.
Okay,
I mean, it does say we make recommendations.
I understand.
I mean, I guess you're gonna,
It's only for discussion.
it's how you
I'm saying,
interpret,
What are our options?
it's how you interpret the bylaws as to making recommendations on everything. It doesn't say, you can only do it on this and you exclude those because they're citizen petitions.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the committee vote against, I guess against, Article 10.
Tony, I'll second that.
I just don't, I think it's just,
I was feeling
it's
it
too
going that
vague
way.
and it's just too, it's too nebulous. I just don't know how you enforce it. I agree with Mr. May's comments. I really don't wanna set the police up for civil action.
Question, Mr. Chairman, can we make a recommendation to pass over this?
There's already a-
Or the
there's already a
There's
selectmen-
already a
mo-
motion on the
There's
floor.
already a motion on the floor.
No, I'm just saying, can we end up doing that? I thought that's just a question.
No, I wanna vote on it.
Yeah, what would I have to do if you wanted to? I mean,
Can
this,
do-
we're
that
in
can be
discussion
done
now.
on- That can be made done on town floor. Don't have questions, okay. All right, there's a motion to
Against.
recommend against this article.
This is one of those strange ones. A yes vote is for or against, versus no vote
The
is
motion.
for.
The motion, right, yeah. The motion was for against.
Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes. Excuse me, yes.
What was the count, Mr. Chairman?
Six.
Unanimous.
It was unanimous.
Oh, it's, okay, 6-0. Okay, thank you. I didn't hear one of them.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And I'll list the reasons why we recommended against this. As given.
Hard to enforce,
Yeah. I'll get that all from.
Lack of available testing of THC levels.
different packaging. And people brought up Ziploc bags versus, you know, a standardization of, packaging.
All right, Article 11, amend the bylaws, engine braking, otherwise, to see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws by inserting a new article, let's see, I can't remember, my 50, 61?
The
50, I don't remember my Roman numerals.
9, right? No.
I think it was 50.
I'll just turn into school real
My
quick.
5th grade teacher is so angry with me right now.
I think it's 59.
This was Amy's classroom, not mine.
Yeah, we just got
wrong.
lost. Okay.
No operator of a diesel truck shall use engine braking, also known as exhaust braking or Jake braking, while operating a vehicle on a public way in the town of Templeton, except in an emergency. Whoever violates this bylaw shall be punished by a fine of $100 for the first offense and $300 for the second and subsequent offenses. The owner of the vehicle may be cited in lieu of the operator. Questions?
My only question is on enforcement again. There is plenty of vehicles going down my road that do exactly that because of the hill going up and going
Amen,
down.
brother.
I mean, I can't enforce it, and I can end up telling the police to enforce it. But
Animal run out.
if they're not there, how can they enforce it?
Well, we set speed limits even though the police department can't be on every inch of a public way. We set stop signs that can't be run even though the police aren't there all the time. We have red lights that people run through. Some states have cameras. I don't think that we can look at whether or not we want to make something a violation based upon the issue that it might be a struggle to enforce it in every instance of every day. I understand your concern on enforceability on the previous two, but I would struggle to understand not approving this on the basis of potential enforceability.
Can we
Define
end up-
an emergency.
Can I ask a question? Can we end up putting
I guess I just asked a
signages,
question.
or Rick request signages on my particular road, that they can end up at least,
I mean, to be honest with you, Will,
pardon me?
you're gonna spend more money to put signs up than you are gonna probably in a year's time in fines that you potentially could collect.
I'm not,
I wouldn't mind having one sign on our road. I'm on the same road as Will. If there was a one sign leading into that road or one sign leading out of it, maybe it just gives them an idea. Don't engine brake.
Right.
And I think it's either gonna be, you're calling up and you're diming out a specific company that winds up using that on their trucks or something like that. It's gonna be repeated use is where you're gonna make your money. That's where you're gonna wind up seeing someone getting in trouble for using
And
a
it's
Jake brake.
generally a turn on, turn off thing.
Right. I like the part about emergency. Jeff, you've offered your opinion on this in prior meetings, and I think that was good, because I know about it, being a transportation officer in the Army. I know about them. I understand about the use and otherwise, but I also live on that road, and they shouldn't be going that fast anyway to necessitate using the Jake
Okay,
brake, but.
so I
I'm
think,
sorry, go
I
on.
think the other problem you have is some of these vehicles, like some U-Hauls and rental trucks that people can have just to move themselves, have this capability. They have an exhaust brake. So, you get, what are you gonna enforce it against somebody that probably has no clue what it even is? I mean, most of the people that are driving the truck that I think that this is targeted at, they know what it's for, and they know when they're using it. And I'm not saying they're using it, anything, but you do have commercially available rental vehicles that you and I can rent without special licenses that have this capability. And the other problem I have with it is define emergency,
Yeah.
especially in a rural area like this. A fox ran out in front of me.
Where did this come from? Is it a citizen petition?
It's a
Is it such a
citi-
problem?
It's from the chief of police as a result of an increasing number of citizen complaints across the community.
Thank you for that. I
I
appreciate
mean,
it.
couldn't.
Probably from Hubbardston
On a
Road.
particular road.
There were several particular roads.
Couldn't they get them for noise violation?
I mean, it happens on my road. I don't go calling all the time because
Doesn't break.
the offender is gone already.
See, right, well, see, that's the thing is, I mean, the police would have, you would have to say, look, today there's a high level of trucks on my road for whatever reason, and they would have to be out there,
All the offenders are not
How's this meant for the
consistent.
police when they see it?
yeah.
To say, hey, I'm just enforcing a bylaw, money comes to the town. I don't know.
Okay. I don't think we need to discuss this anymore.
Agreed.
I mean, whatever y'all recommend, and we can work on it over the summer and the fall if that's needed. The only thing that I'm learning tonight is that we need to add a session to the joint reviews, because
Yep.
this was in the book, for the most part, from day one. And these are very good questions. I wish I had known
Lesson
3 or
learned.
4 weeks ago. So next year, after this, I always try to do a debrief. What can we do better next year?
Yep.
Lesson one for me is add a session on nothing,
But the warrant.
nothing but the warrant.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm in agreement totally.
To me, it's just a safety item. It's big trucks using their brakes constantly, they smoke them, we don't have a lot of big hills, but it is a safety item for me. And I don't know how much of it happens after 10 o'clock at night versus during the normal day.
So when you say it's a safety item, meaning that some truck drivers have to do this? from a
No,
safety
you do
perspective?
this, you use it and you use your brakes less. When you have a heavy load on and you start hitting your brakes,
downshift.
you smoke your brakes, they glaze over and then you're not stopping. That's
Right,
why a
right,
lot of,
yeah.
like, big hill areas, they have
That-
runaway
That's
places.
what I thought you meant.
So
So
the
I just
vehicles that
think
go-
in general,
Yeah.
it's a safety item.
The
And-
vehicles that are going down my
It's almost
road
9 o'clock and we're
have
only on
heavy
Article.
loads because they're 18-wheelers with a lot of metal in them.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. No, just wanted clarification on that, so perfect,
Maybe
thank
this
you.
would be a good time.
Hmm?
Good time.
That's why I drove burgers.
I already had one.
Okay,
All right.
so,
They still will up?
No, does it really matter? No.
McDonald's, they'll last for a couple of years.
Article 11? Anything, any other questions or anything on Article 11?
No.
Any motion?
Oh, no one wants to even make the motion. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend against Article 11.
Second.
Article 11, recommend against. Mike?
Present.
You can abstain.
Abstain.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
No.
yes.
So one abstain and what? How many yes?
4-1-1.
4-1? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Again, with Article 12, Mr. Chairman, if you could just highlight it.
You wanna read it?
So in simplest terms, if that's agreeable, Jeff, if I
Yes, it's,
Sheila wants to go from
Two-pager.
5 to 7 members. Now that I'm seeing this, I think that there should be no compensation for members, should not be struck, that should probably stay in. We've found that there are on some of these committees quorum issues despite the best efforts of the staff and the participants. So I would like to do what we did with the capital planning, which is let the town veterans agent be part of the quorum if there is no other physical quorum, so the meeting can go forward.
I mean, do we currently have 5 people appointed to this board?
It's full board right now, I believe, is it not?
Because I know there was an issue of getting people.
Yeah. I didn't think that she had enough.
That's why my
I think,
concern
or
is
at least I
going from
think
5
that
to
she
7.
struggled. I think that she struggled with maintaining.
It's been a struggle. All these boards and commissions are a struggle. And the final thing is, it calls for a report in December, and the general bylaws call for the reports out in early February. So we wanted to strike the December report, so it would line up with the February 1 annual report provision.
Mr. Chair, I propose a motion to recommend for Article 12, the Veterans Advisory Board.
And the final motion will not be striking, there should be no compensation for members. I think that's a error in drafting.
You're gonna get rid of the compensation for
I'm putting
members?
it- I believe, that once I get this under the microscope, I'll be leaving in, there should be no compensation for members. I'll be removing the
okay.
strike-throughs from that
Does that mean
sentence.
the VSO also?
No, that's why, the very last signs, provided however that the Veteran Services Officer's compensation may include compensation for time spent serving on the board.
And how is that going to be? How the person gonna be compensated?
As the Veteran Services Officer, so that if they're a meeting and they happen to be part of the quorum, we don't have to calculate that for the one night they were part of the quorum for 1 hour, we should reduce that person's salary.
You're gonna reduce the salary?
No, we're not going to. They're the only person who can get compensation if they happen to be sitting as a member of that committee as part of their
Or
duties
it's part
that
of,
night.
it's part of the quorum?
Yeah.
And they will get that from their,
It's just part of their salary.
from
It's
from
part
their
of
salary? From
It's
their
their salary to
already?
be there.
From their salary already?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They're not getting a stipend
Right.
on top of it.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Did you have a second?
I did not have a second.
Second?
Okay, yeah, that's right.
all right, on Article 12, amending the
If I
bylaw
can, real
of
quick,
Veterans
Adam's
Yeah.
pointed out to me that we will be leaving it there because town council moved it down below. Apparently it was in twice.
Okay, thank you.
All right, recommend favorable action for Article 12. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
long as there's no compensation, I'll vote yes.
Yes.
Yeah, too long.
What is 13?
It's the page right after 12.
Page 20?
Okay.
It'd be really nice if they did track changes on
Twelve
this,
is
so we
actually
could
really
see
short,
what's
13
actually
is very
changed
long.
in the bylaw versus what.
Oh, yeah.
I'll have to check with council, but I believe they're basically taking it out of the generals to put it into the zoning.
Okay.
It is approximately 14 pages long.
So it will amend the bylaws and move this wireless communication facilities and towers from general bylaws and add it to zoning bylaw.
Which is where it
Probably
belongs.
belongs anyways.
Okay.
I'm
Now-
surprised, frankly, you got it through the Attorney General's office as a general bylaw.
I make a motion,
But they're on
for,
Friday.
I make a motion for Article 13.
I second it.
Article 13, we recommend favorable action on the article. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
This is four?
Yes.
Yes.
Article 14, amending of zoning map. See if the town will vote to amend the town zoning map by rezoning the parcels identified on Baldwinville Road as follows. Maps 4-06, parcels 19.3, 23, 23.2, 24, 25, 25.1, 26, 26.10, 16.12, 27, 27.1, and 28. Map 4-07, parcels 48.1, 52, and 53 per the attached map at the end of the warrant. From residential agricultural 1, RA1 zoning district to commercial industrial A, CIA, or to take any other action relative thereto. Questions?
Well, kinda have a little problem with the or to take, they wanna change the zoning, but then they say or to take any action relative thereto, what does that mean?
That is boilerplate. You'll notice every single warrant article has that in there. It provides an opportunity for related amendments, amendments that moderator would recognize as being germane and not outside
Okay,
the scope of the warrant.
These are all, they look like they're on the east side of Baldwinville Road in the vicinity of the school.
I'm told by the planning board chair that these are properties that are essentially, many of them in commercial use already, under grandfathering. They're attempting to bring them into current zoning to allow that permitted use, even if there should be a timeout to allow expansions to try to increase economic activity in the area. I will tell you that this was attempted, a different version, a couple of meetings ago. I think there were some very legitimate objections on the basis of process. This time around, I think Lori did a very nice job of getting information out to the neighbors before they even went down the path of starting the actual rezoning. She had, the planning board held just some sort of general conversation meetings. So while there may be objection from some on the merits, I would hope that we have gotten past the issue of, did we go through a good process on this?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Hi, Mr. Chair. I believe there's two issues with this article. One being seemingly we're gonna be in violation because of the dates of Chapter 48, Section 5, which is the adoption or change of zoning ordinance or bylaws, the procedure. And I state that specifically because it says, if a town meeting fails to vote to adopt any proposed bylaw within 6 months after the planning board hearing, no action shall be taken thereon until after subsequent public hearing is held with notice and report as provided. Being that the town meeting is on May 15th and the hearing was on December 11th, they missed by 4 days. It appears. And I believe there's also another requirement in here that I haven't heard of, I don't know, maybe it's been done, but that the bordering towns are notified prior to this happening.
No, it's exactly 6 months. Take away 3 days in February and 1 day in April. It's exactly 6 months. You said they missed by 4 days, but if it's on the 11th, 6 months of an average of 30 days a month, you don't have that. You have 3 days that you didn't have in February. So you don't go by months as in,
I
it'd
don't
be a
know.
half a year, so.
I don't know how it goes. I'm just saying, I mean, if you go December 11th to May 15th, you got 31 days in a couple months, and you got 28 days in a month. You know, I don't know. It just seems like it's a miss.
Chairman, you have a question for Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Well, despite writing like one from time to time and quarreling with you, Mr. Chairman, over the statute is, I'm not a lawyer. In the interest of time, I would respectfully suggest that perhaps the board, if they have concerns about it, make a recommendation at the meeting. We will address this with council Tuesday night and get you an answer.
Okay.
If there are questions with respect to the process.
We can withhold our recommendation until town meeting.
I just offer that as possible.
That might be prudent.
Make a motion.
How would that work, though? Well,
What do you mean?
like so the Board of Selectmen read the motion.
Right. If we had the
moderator
information-
asks for what is the,
Yeah.
do we make a vote at that point to see
Yes.
is?
Or
Will he allow that?
you all get there, post a meeting for 10 minutes ahead of time, and you have a memorandum from town council on a number of issues,
Right.
and the chair quickly polls you, when this
Is it-
comes up, what am I gonna report?
We've actually polled, while the question is on the floor, we said, hang on, we polled
Yeah.
Okay.
the members right at that particular time, and the vote came, then our recommendation was asked for after we polled. I mean, we actually polled the moderator, we would poll the membership at that particular time.
I make a motion to, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
I just wanted to also mention that the same issues happened this time as the last time that Mr. Terenzini was talking about at the planning board hearing. It was conducted by one of the owners of the property, one of the other, the owner's father was a voting person, the owner was a voter. So the same damn issues happened this time as did last time, except, a couple things got cleaned up afterward.
So, are you saying that people who voted for this could potentially benefit from it?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay.
And relatives.
Okay. Ma'am, or Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's
Go
okay.
ahead.
I think I remember watching that planning board meeting, and if I remember correctly, we could always go back and check, those people abstained from the vote.
No, one abstained from the vote at the end, Kirk did. His father didn't. Kirk abstained from the vote, but he ran the meeting, which is the same.
I would have to watch it again.
Yep.
sure, but-
We're delaying because of chapter, what did you say, 48?
Yes, 48, section 5, I believe.
Well, but that's relevant, what you just said is to me, relevant information on how I would recommend to the voters.
We can put in the warrant that we are withholding our recommendation till annual town meeting. I mean, that is what we as a committee can end up doing. So if we chose to do that, that's probably,
Yeah, I mean, I focused on the difference between the two. You got one that's residential, you got one that's commercial. I looked at the map, I tried to consider what were my perceptions of that area. Residential to commercial. I know that there's a lot of businesses along that stretch of road. But I shouldn't say a lot. There are businesses along that stretch of road. Is that the major topic that we're talking about? Changing it from strictly residential to if you want to have a business out of your house? So whether it's benefiting someone or not, the planning board's looked at it. Now we're gonna look at some procedural stuff. Am I oversimplifying it?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe what's being stated is the people who voted to change it or to bring this forward
Uh-huh.
could potentially gain financially by the zoning change.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
when they go sell the property mainly. I mean, if it sits today,
Regardless.
you know.
I mean, regardless of how they do it.
You know,
kinda
one
have
of
a-
my notes was, how does this affect the citizens and do they know? For the people that, of the enumerated lots that we talked through, understanding that some may benefit, well, what about the others, if they change all of it? If there's a business in one of those lots, how does that affect the resulting residents? I don't know. That's why we have hearings like this, that's why we encourage discussion at town meeting. Someone comes back and says, it's it's residential, I don't want it to be commercial. I don't know, but I think it's prudent to, what was the motion for, to pass over?
I'll make a
No
motion
motion
to, take it in up, making our recommendation at town meeting.
Second, that was a motion?
Yes.
I second that. Does that make sense? Does anyone else want anything else?
That's May 7th, right, Carter?
It is.
Yes.
He'll be out here at 6:30. He'll be here a little bit earlier, Jeff, if you'd like to stop in and we can review any of these questions. We'll get him a email within the next day or so.
Article 14, to withhold recommendation until town meeting. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
I vote yes, but I plan to vote no against it. Article 15,
I know.
the codification of the existing town bylaws. To see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws in order to improve consistency of language and style throughout, and to bring the bylaws into conformance with current practices and the general laws of the Commonwealth by adopting the changes to the general bylaws in the document entitled Red Line Draft Bylaw Codification, V as in Victor 9-02.19.2019, clean copy -2, which is available on the town's website for inspection.
So my first question to this is, we spent a lot of time changing our advisory committee bylaw. Did that make it into this
It
copy?
did not.
It did not.
I asked the select board what they wanted to do, and I was not given any direction to move forward.
I would like to think it end up seeing us make a recommendation at Annual Town Meeting after we go through the hearing, next week, to get a little more information, because if you look at this, it actually calls for version, dated, 2019, and I had a hard time following this because I saw that particular version on the site. I made a discussion at the last time the administrator was here, and he said, no, it's changed. He agreed at that meeting that, no, it hadn't changed. And then I looked at it, and he said it would change, and I looked at it for the next couple of days to take and end up seeing what changed and what took place. And it took only to, I think you sent an email finally for the version on the 423 just the other day.
When it was reposted, yes.
That was, it was this week.
So,
I think, I don't remember at this point, I've been through so many versions.
Yeah, you're right.
I
And it was
think-
only just within the last,
I think it may have been Tuesday morning when it was reposted.
so I think as a committee, most of the bylaws I'm fine with. The problem I have is ours is not in there. We in good faith presented the Board of Selectmen, with a copy. They provided no comments to those copies. I know that, town administrator looked at them and only had some minor tweaks to what we had written. If I am characterizing what you had.
I think that the body of it worked fine. There were some operational challenges with some of it. I would have enjoyed an opportunity to talk with somebody about something, and I have never received a direction to do that. And this body, frankly, did not seem to be open to working through the bylaw with me. Did it in, you know, it's been a great deal of time on your own, and I appreciate that.
We expected more from the Board of Selectmen.
I would prefer not to comment on that.
That's fine. That's fine.
yeah, I mean, I would like to see us actually
Yeah.
go to that meeting, or at least watch it, or to see what the process is, and to take and end up making a recommendation at Annual Town Meeting, like we did the last one.
Well,
I think, I'm not sure, but I think we even gave them both the original version and your amended version. And I brought it up on a couple of occasions.
for Article 15, I'd like to make a motion that the committee at town meeting presents the document that we wrote as presented as a substitute.
Motion?
Yep.
Well, we withhold our recommendation till then. We had, that was my first thing.
So maybe our recommendation is to withhold because
Until town meeting. I mean, we can talk about that a little bit more, Tony. The other choice we have of withholding that recommendation until town meeting is to wait to go to that meeting and adjourn the pre-town meeting until next week to take and handle one of, I was just thinking about maybe this particular one, after we've gone through, we can end up coming back and doing that. But that would be up to the board members as to which way they want to end up going. We have those options.
We would not adjourn, we would recess the.
We would
the
recess,
hearing.
that's correct.
Um,
We could recess until sometime after that or whatever.
I can tell you now that I'm not gonna vote in favor of this article the way it's written. Without our bylaw changed. I felt that their change to our bylaw was, for want of better words, new during this committee.
Well, the first motion we have is I made a motion to withhold recommendation till the annual town meeting. Was there a second?
On this?
Yes.
Sure, I'll second that.
All right, on a motion to recommend, to withhold recommendation until annual town meeting. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
yes.
Tony, at this time, you can end up making a recommendation to, end up making a substitute motion to include that if you wish.
Right now?
No, I don't do it,
No.
I do it at town meeting.
First of all, due respect, there's no such thing as a substitute motion. There are amendments to the main motion.
Okay?
We'll figure out how we wanna do it, I wanna make sure that
And
we
if,
have
and
it.
if this body's gonna be meeting before the town meeting, I would be more than willing, if anyone is interested, in discussing what I saw as some operational challenges with it.
And a choice of a next meeting date is on the agenda this evening. Okay, got that. Article 16, sell town lands to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by purchase, gift, or eminent domain any interest not currently owned by the town in one or two parcels of land commonly identified on the town's assessing map as map 4-02, parcel 2. It's 12 acres or so, and located on Royalston Road in 3-07, that would be map, and parcel 58, about 15 acres, located on Athol Road, and thereafter to sell one or both parcels to the Massachusetts Department of Fish and Game or such other state agency, with all such land to be under the custody, care, control of the Commonwealth for public open space, conservation, and passive recreational purposes, provided, however, that the cost of the acquisition of interest in said parcels not currently owned by the town may not exceed the proceeds from said sale, and to execute, deliver, grant, and accept such deeds, restrictions, instruments, and agreements as it deems reasonable, appropriate, and in the best interest of the town to be necessary to effectuate the purpose of this article or take any other action related thereto. Questions?
Yeah, I'm a little confused because it says we're selling land, but at the very beginning, it says vote to authorize selectmen to acquire, purchase, gift, or eminent domain, any interest.
So, simplest terms, if I may.
Yeah.
State is attempting to buy 470 plus or minus acres from the Walter E. Fernald Corporation to preserve for conservation, open space, recreation. The grant that they're going after requires they assemble at least 500 acres. So they're 30 acres, give or take, short. We have two parcels of land in that area they would like to acquire. One that we have a nice, very clean, perfectly trackable title to. One which we own, and everybody around it says they abut lands of the town of Templeton, but there is no clean title into the town. In a conventional sale, you might say, we'll sell, give you all of our right title and interest. It's a quick claim deed, and the buyer might say, okay. State doesn't do that, so we need to clean the title up on that land that we have every reason to believe we own, and that everybody around us believes we owned. So, it's a series of simultaneous transactions, okay? We sell parcel A to the state. We condemn, acquire, or otherwise clear the title to parcel B.
That's owning it.
They buy parcel B from us. If we have to acquire it by eminent domain or from owners unknown, we take the value of parcel B, we escrow that with Superior Court for 2 years. During that 2 years, anyone can come in and prove, and we have the right to challenge whatever proof that they provide, they own it, well, then they get the money. Nobody comes in, proves they own it. At the end of the 2 years, that money is released to us.
How is the value determined on these two other, I mean, I'm not.
The state's done an independent appraisal. We expect the land to come in around $1,700 per acre. So we expect at the end of the day to be around $35,000 plus or minus.
For both properties?
Yes.
I mean, is it,
They're physically separated. We frankly didn't even
17.
pay them any attention till the state called up and say, are you interested in selling this stuff? CPC has provided some administrative money for our title work to get a head start on where we're at. Concom, everybody signed off. Initially, they thought the town should keep it because they thought that was gonna save town meeting actions. It didn't. So we had a meeting, we brought James, I can't remember James' last
is
name.
it wetlands area, or is it good
It's
land?
quite a
or-
bit, no, it's quite a bit of swampy land, doesn't even have any real timbering value.
Okay,
Whether or not
It's not
it's
something
fish
that's
and game.
buildable? Okay, well, it just,
And frankly, we are not good stewards of land. If we can take land that we're not using, has no real value, get paid for it, and still have it maintained in the public domain for open space, that, and maybe get an extra $1.98 in the pilot from the state, that's frankly a win-win for everybody.
thank you.
And it is confusing because there's all these simultaneous transactions that have to happen to clean up the title.
I make a motion to vote favorably for this article.
Second.
Article 16, motion second, recommend favorable action on this article. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
yes. Article 17, fiscal 2019 sewer department operating budget. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $1,311,864.00 to operate the sewer department for fiscal 2020 and to meet said appropriation by a transfer of $135,570.00 from the certified retained earnings of the sewer fund and the balance from the receipts and revenues to be collected on behalf of the sewer department for said fiscal year. Questions?
I think the administrator clarified a couple of things that we had as questions as to why he put on some money for OPEB that was not included, because I had a question as to
Yep.
why are you changing the budget? And it was recommendations that
That was the
that
answer.
there was, money's not put in. How much different does your recommendation compare to, say, what the commissioners had voted, Carter, other than the OPEB money, because I
think
understood.
by the time we put in an allowance for the collective bargaining agreement, we adjusted for the debt. I'm gonna bet you, I'd have to go back and look, but it was probably on the order of 80 plus or minus thousands by the time we were all done.
The OPEB plus, or just,
You had OPEB, you had indirect costs, you had an allowance for the collective bargaining agreement.
okay,
They had lower.
$40,000?
They had lower than actuals on the health insurance.
Yeah.
They had lower than actuals on the regional retirement system. And they had lower than actuals on the debt. So I'm gonna bet you it was on the order of $80,000 to $100,000.
Do we know why they were lower?
Because they didn't follow the budget guidance, and they didn't participate in the process. And they didn't ask those of us who knew the right numbers what they would be. I believe that we've had good conversations with the commission. Jeff was there at a meeting that I would call I don't know, Jeff, I'm gonna be as bold to call it a breakthrough moment. That meeting that we had, and I think we've improved the relationship dramatically just in the past 2 or 3 months. And I'm hopeful that the commissioners at large will be more involved in their budget process next fall. And I think that we can collaboratively work together to have a more solid number when it comes in the door day one.
I make a motion to approve Article 17, or vote favorably for Article 17.
Second.
That was a motion for?
To vote favorably.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Or recommend favorable.
You all set?
Yep.
Article 17, to recommend favorable action on the article. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes. Article 18, deposits to the reserve accounts of the sewer fund. See if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $25,000.00 to make deposits into the OPEB reserve account of the sewer fund and to meet said appropriation by a transfer of said sum from the certified retained earnings of the sewer fund. Questions?
None?
I make a motion to vote favorably for Article 18.
Second.
Article 18, motion for recommend favorable action on the article. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I ask that the chairman just to announce the vote? I'm not hearing everybody's,
6 yes.
thank you.
Article 19, sewer capital project for fiscal year 2020. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $80,000 and no cents for realigning and paving portions of the wastewater treatment plant, interior roadway, and to meet said appropriation by a transfer of said sum from the certified retained earnings of the sewer fund. Questions?
Make a motion to vote favorably?
Second.
Motion second to recommend favorable action on Article 19. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you announce the vote after everyone?
That is 6,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
Article 20. That cable department. Fiscal 20, says 2019, I believe it should be 2020. Cable department operating budget, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $204,989.00 to operate the
almost
cable
a zero-sum
department for
game.
fiscal year 2020 and to meet said appropriation by a transfer of $79,989.00 from the certified retained earnings of the cable fund and the balance from the receipts and revenues to be collected on behalf of the cable department for said fiscal year. Mr. Castle is here. There is a
Not costing the
handout.
town anything. It's not costing the town anything, providing you get those receipts, so.
Mr. Castle, do you want to defend this? or-
answer any questions you
We've already gone through the budget.
I know we've, a couple things have come up, but I believe they were answered one or a couple times. Steve was unable to be at the
Yeah.
first meeting, but through emails and other subsequent meetings.
I actually do have a question, based on one of your emails. I noticed that some of the equipment that you need to buy, you kind of put estimates of about 5,000, but there was statements in there that it could potentially exceed, probably will exceed, I think it was a couple. Do you believe that your receipts that you'll bring in will cover the additional potential expenses?
Well, I believe you're talking about the capital items.
Yeah, maybe,
And then those we are asking to draw from the retained earnings
okay.
that have been accumulating for the past several years.
So have you, I don't wanna say pad, I don't like that number, that word. Have you kind of put a factor into your retained earnings request for potential overages of those? Meaning if you have $79,000, or I can't remember the exact number, in your retained almost $80,000 in retained earnings, but your cost is $87,000, where's the $7,000 coming from? Because the town's gonna vote for that number.
If we go over on one or two items like that, we may not be able to do everything.
Okay.
I think we have to be somewhat flexible on
Yeah, he may not be able to do everything, but he doesn't have 79,000, he has $200,000. He has a spend plan for 200,000. It's not X comes from retained earnings and Y comes
Okay.
from revenue.
So as long as he's within his spend
As
plan.
long as he's
Okay.
within his
Thank you.
spend plan, and he can make adjustments elsewhere in the
Okay.
spend plan.
That's fine. You know how I feel about spend plans.
I do, sir.
Mr. Chair, I propose a motion to recommend for Article 20.
20.
I just have one comment, Mr. Counselor. You, on page 2, you're not recommending to go live. I don't understand why, because I was in the community of Sterling a couple of years back, and their selectmen's meetings go out live, and they actually have telephones there where people can call in and ask questions. It is on a delay, but I don't see what, I think maybe that I would like for you to take a look at that and some other communities that do live, to take and end up seeing if you would revisit that again.
If I may, I'm recommending that we do live streaming to YouTube. I am not recommending that we do live broadcasts on the TV channel as of yet, because our server presently will not handle that.
Oh, it's because of server issues?
Yes, we need a
Okay.
new server, and
Okay.
that's in the retained, that's in that capital plan. So until we have that in place, I don't even wanna entertain that.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's another $5,000 to $7,000 piece of equipment that will go on a 15-second delay. But we need the proper equipment to do that
Yeah,
for
okay.
us.
Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
On the motion to recommend favorable action for Article 20.
I'm gonna second the motion first before you go. I don't think anyone did,
Oh, I thought you did. I thought
I didn't think anyone did, so, okay,
I
perfect.
thought she
just
did.
to make sure we
Yep.
close all our
We're good,
gaps.
yep.
Okay, I thought she did.
I did, you predicted the future.
Okay. Motion and second to recommend favorable action on Article 20. Mike?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Amy?
Yep.
Lee?
Yes.
Will?
Yes,
Yes. 6 yeses.
thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for attending, Steve. Article 21, funding of community preservation accounts, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $300,000.00 to the several accounts of the Community Preservation Committee as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee as follows. The administrative account in the amount of $15,000, which is 5% of the total. Historic Resources Reserve, the amount of $30,000, which is 10% of the total. Community Housing Reserve in the amount of $30,000, 10% of the total. Open Space and Recreation Reserve in the amount of $30,000, 10% of the total. The General Reserve, $195,000 is 65%, for a total of $300,000. Not carried, not. Yep. And to meet said appropriation by a transfer from the community preservation annual revenues, which include the amount to be collected as a surcharge on real property in the October 2019 state match for CPC permissible expenses. Questions?
Everybody understands that the town, you pay that on your taxes, and we also get 3%, one of the few towns in the state that gets a reimbursement at 3%. So I mean, it's a real benefit to help us do other projects.
I make a motion to vote favorably?
Second.
Motion and a second to recommend favorable action on Article 21. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
Yes,
yes. 6,
thank you.
yes. Article 22, expending of community preservation reserves. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $52,000.00 for expenditure by the Templeton Recreation Committee for improvements, to Gilman Way Park, including relocating the baseball field and associated fencing and other improvements to the fields and park, and to meet said appropriation by a transfer of funds from the Open Space and Recreation Reserve of the Community Preservation Act. Article 22, questions?
Yes, is this in addition to the monies that it's already sitting there for past years? If you look at the BVA,
It is.
past,
It is.
it is? So there's a couple of $10,000 accounts, like in 13, there was quite a bit of money from the Pajeri account that was given.
That wasn't in 13, but yes, there.
Well, it shows us, I think it shows us 60.
I think that Scott Dill and his group have been trying to get these spent down. I think there was a lag in activity by the commission, which Scott Dill and his group have been pretty diligent. I know that they're doing a major project on the irrigation in conjunction with the schools. But yes, these would be additional monies.
What is a baseball field they wanna move?
I'd have to ask Scott. I'd be happy to get that for you before
Just curious, cause they just put a new baseball field in there.
the town meeting, but we'll reach out to Scott Dill and get or Mike perhaps may know, I think this was presented to the Capitol. I don't mean to put you on the spot.
If you
but
could just
I
get
don't-
that to me,
I
that's
don't recall
fine.
the ball field moving.
Yeah, it does, on the BVA,
We'll find out.
That's fine.
Mr.
not gonna-
Scott,
that-
on the BVA, it does actually say 2013 Gilman Waite. Initially, it was 18,000, there's still 10,216 left.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that was, I remember that as
No, I-
Pajari.
I understand.
So we're talking about $80,000 basically for that particular project between.
Anything else?
Make a motion to vote favorably.
Second.
Motion second to recommend favorable action, Article 22. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
Yes,
yes. Article 23, the Templeton Scholarship Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $4,000.00 to the Templeton Scholarship Fund to be expended by the Templeton Scholarship Committee for the purposes of awarding scholarships to eligible applicants from the town of Templeton. Questions, Article 23?
Are we expending every year we do this, are we expending them?
Yes.
are we what?
Are we expending the money that we appropriate for
Uh,
these?
not,
Yes.
there's still some on the BVA, it's expended, sometimes, from what I understood from talking, with the chair of that, Mr. Brooks, at some time back, they would end up giving that monies for, say, you go through the first semester, they would end up giving you that
Give
for
it to you for the
like the second semester.
Yeah.
And
A lot of scholarships do that.
Yeah, and it's not a big dollars, we're talking only
500.
hundreds of dollars to each of the
My son
students.
got one.
And
I just had the concern to make sure that we're
So
expending.
Yes,
from
it's
the-
being
from the
expended.
2018 fund, $4,000 appropriation, there's about $2,000 left. From the 2019, they're just, actually, I think they're meeting, just met within the
they're
last few days.
meeting this week, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
to award the fiscal 2019 dollars. And then the student has to go through the school year, get their grades, report back. Now, what we've
Usually a
done
semester.
is that, so there's been nothing spent out of 2019 yet. And what we've done is made sure that when they're coding up their invoices, they're always using the last article. There was a period of time when they would just go to the most recent article.
Right.
So the old money was sitting there. So they've got about half of their 2018 monies left, and they're awarding their 2019 monies this.
That's,
Do they,
just for that clarification.
is your question that they expend the money that we give them every year? Or do they use stuff from
It was both, and not only
They-
did you answer it, but Carter gave the specificity
Yeah.
that I was looking for.
Yeah.
I'd propose a motion to accept Article 23, recommend in favor for.
Second.
Motion and second to recommend favorable action, Article 23. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes. Article 24, the property valuation account, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $22,500.00 to be expended by the Board of Assessors for interim work, 5-year recertification, cyclical inspections, and costs associated with carrying out these activities and fulfilling the intent of this article, including the purchase or licensing of software, or take any action relative thereto. Article 24, questions?
Where's the money coming from?
Levy, tax levy.
The reason for this article is just like the scholarships. Once it's voted, they use it for a revaluation, and it sits there until they actually expend it. They don't necessarily expend it in the year that it's approved. Because every 3 years, they have
It's
to.
every 5 years.
5 years.
5 years, and they were in,
Yes, for people to come
we're
out
in a
and do it.
research year
We,
this
we
year.
are in a research year, so for instance, we appropriated 22.5, 20 in 18, 22.5 last year, 22.5 this year. But between this fiscal year and next fiscal year, we'll actually spend around $57,000, $58,000. Because we have to flatline the appropriation, but the expenditures can have peaks and valleys to them because of that 50-year reval.
The reval used to be every 3 years. The Municipal Modernization Act, it went to 5 years.
I make a motion to vote favorably for Article 24.
Second.
A motion and a second to recommend favorable action on Article 24. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes. Alrighty. Article 25.
I take that as 6-0.
6 yes.
Yep.
Set the salaries of elected town officials. To see if the town will vote in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 41, subsection 108, to fix or maintain the salaries of certain elected officials for fiscal year 2020 as follows. The town clerk, $58,143.00 yearly. The Board of Selectmen, $500 yearly. Sewer commissioners, each in parentheses, $2,000 yearly. Article 25, questions?
I believe Board of Selectmen is 500 each, right?
It is. And given that the warning is, specifies each on sewer commission, I will discuss with town council whether or not we should mirror that with respect to the Board of Selectmen for the
That's a good
purposes
call.
of clarity.
You have a question?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. May?
I just wanted to see if we could verify whether or not the actions taken to get to this point and beyond comply with 268A 6A, which is the state ethics on or on conflicts of interest for public officials reporting requirement. It just seems like, I mean, I don't know how you get around it, but it seems like an issue for, falls right into here, Board of Selectmen voting their own stipend, voting to approve their own stipend. I don't know how you'd get around it, but, other than following through and filling out the paperwork that says you might have a conflict and sending it into the state
They're not
ethics board.
voting their stipend though, the town votes whether they do.
They voted to submit it on the warrant.
Nobody had a problem when they voted to take it away 10+ years ago. When I first moved here, they got a stipend,
Yeah.
so.
No, and I'm not disputing the idea of a stipend, personally, I think, you should work for it, yeah, but you do. But I just, wanna make sure we're following the rules.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
To follow up on Tony's point, the selectmen are not actually voting the stipend for themselves. They're voting to submit their request to town meeting. I'm comfortable it does not violate 268A, given the town meeting votes for it. That said, I have this whole process I go through with town council. He's gonna be here Tuesday night. I've made the note,
Okay.
and we'll have him address it.
Okay. Just make sure we're good.
Thank you.
Especially given you've supported the additional money for his budget.
Ooh, that was a catch-22.
We'll submit the question to him.
I'll voice in, I don't have any problems with the town clerk or the sewage commission. Town clerk, we need to take it into paying that individual. Sewage commission, that comes out of the sewage funds, but I do have an objection to this article because of the selectmen's getting stipends.
You do a lot of work.
In 2013, that was voted down because there was an issue with, it continued, once it
Okay.
was voted in, it continued to be raised to the point where it became an amount that the selectmen were getting benefits and costly to the community, and I don't like to see us go through that. There's a lot of, there are communities, other than us.
Okay, that's not part of the warrant article, other communities or what we did in
Okay, that's fine.
2011.
Okay,
I make a motion to vote favorably for Article 25.
I'll second that.
The motion is made, seconded, recommend favorable action on Article 25. Mike?
Abstain.
Tony?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Will?
no,
And I will abstain. That is 3 yes, 1 no, 2 abstentions.
I know why you did. You don't have to take it. No? I don't have a problem with it.
Article 26.
It's supposed
It
to say
should read-
FY 20, is that supposed to say FY 2020?
Yes.
Yes.
We'll fix
Okay.
that.
You can't fix it. Warrant's published. You can only fix it if it's in the body of the motion.
So how do we deal with this
You
then?
don't have to.
Double money this year.
No, you don't have
that
to,
how that
because it's a heading, it's an alert, but it's the motion that
Okay.
carries the.
Yeah,
end.
the motion says that
Okay.
it's 2020.
No word. All right.
And I can guarantee you that if we fix the typos in this, and we set it aside for a week, and we all read it again,
We'd
there'll
find
be
more.
another mistake someplace.
I
Okay.
just wanted to make sure I was.
That's good. Nope, good answer.
The general fund operating budget. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $9,690,274.00 for the operation of general government for fiscal year 2020, and to meet said appropriation with a transfer of $250,000.00 from the ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation, anticipated receipts, and the balance from taxation. Article 26, questions?
It's the 7.4 is in that, right? The school's budget's in that?
No, that's.
No, it's
That's on
separate.
No,
above.
That,
Yeah, this is something else.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
is FX.
This is for
Process.
the town
well,
general
across
fund.
the bottom.
Yes.
The town general fund
Yes.
budget is
Yeah.
that this
Okay.
number. Mr. May?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a housekeeping thing here. I believe since we added the 17.5 under Article 3, that this number would need to be amended, 17.5? No?
No, if you
No,
do,
it's
then you would be
capital.
double appropriating.
Oh, okay,
These are
okay.
freestanding articles,
Okay, okay.
okay, especially, they're all freestanding. The only one that does get added in is the appropriation for the ambulance lease. If you start taking all the freestanding ones and then add them to the budget in
Yeah.
total, I had that happen in one community, just after I got there, and we had to actually have a special meeting to undo all their
Clear
math.
it up here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I make a motion to vote favorably for Article 26. We've talked about the budget
Second.
enough.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action on Article 26. Mike?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Will?
No.
I'll do this on down floor. Yes, with, note to myself.
Almost there.
Yes.
Watch yourself.
Oh, no.
Article
Big ones are out
twenty-seven,
of the way.
supplemental fiscal year 2020 operating budget, extraordinary inspection workload. To see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $25,000.00 for supplemental appropriations to the fiscal year 2020 operating budget of the Office of Development Services for additional compensation for the building, plumbing, gas, and electrical inspectors above and beyond that to be paid from their regular annual salary and respective revolving funds to account for the extraordinary inspection workload created by the construction of the new elementary school, and to meet said appropriation by a transfer of said sum from free cash.
So,
Article 27, questions.
so we had the same article last year, right?
And the year before, yes.
Okay, so you feel that?
Well, you get the
It's
building
exponential.
permit fee in 1 year.
Okay.
They just get started, then you have a year of pretty good progress. Frankly, I'm not sure we're gonna need much more than maybe $5,000 of this. I just never know what could go wrong
Okay.
in construction.
Okay, I understand. And it's coming from free cash, so.
Right. And then it rolls back in.
Yeah, my only comments are, as I said earlier, that when you look at the BBA, the amount of money that they've used thus far out of the appropriation for the inspection was 50,000, and they've used less than 25%. I think this is probably much higher than it needs to be, and I would, on that particular note, is I don't like to take it, end up seeing us do that much money above and beyond, per se.
But I would be concerned that if, like Carter said, something came up to where they needed to expend more if you reduce the amount, well, you can't just give them the money. They'd probably be outside the transfer window. So how would you do that? Then
Well,
they would
the
come
reason I
to
say
our
that- The reason
fund.
I say that, Tony, is that there's still $39,000 in the article that we passed last year.
What do they have left to do?
And I've had buildings blow up, not the entire building, with 2 weeks left to go.
Right.
And you gotta shut everything down for 3 months while you get everybody to kind of sort out what the heck's going on. I think we've been pretty frugal in our use of the money. We try to be careful, but, I'm not sure I understand.
Well, the total between the two would be like almost $65,000. I think that's a lot of money for
I
inspection.
don't disagree with you,
Yeah.
but not being a building inspector with electrical or plumbing, I don't know what goes into it, I don't know what tasks they have left. So I'm gonna have to take it at face value.
And on June 30th, if I might, that expires because it's been kept separate so that it can be charged and is much more transparent.
And since it would be
It
coming
was
from
only for
free
the fiscal
cash,
year.
it will go back into free cash,
Oh,
so
that- Last year was just for the physical year and not roll, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
you'd have to look at the article that sits behind it, but on
Okay.
June 30, that goes.
Thank you for
poof.
clarifying.
I can't carry
Okay,
that over.
Then I changed my, yeah, right. Thank you for pointing that out.
Because it's for the fiscal year and not.
It was for the fiscal year, it
Not
wasn't a
a-
special warrant article.
Right.
Each time I've done it, it's been just for the fiscal
For the
year
year.
and the unused
so
monies.
it's not an aggregate. Okay, I
Mr.
make
Mayor?
a,
That's correct.
Yeah, I just wanted to, for Will's sake here, just wanted to mention the fact that I believe that we got, in this school project, I think there was $139,000 or better for inspections, that came with a thing that, this was all part of the role to pay it off and how we do it. It seems,
Yeah, because I remember there was some monies in the building when they rolled out the amounts for the school.
Yeah.
I don't remember the amount, but,
yeah, and I don't think we're close.
no, I don't think so either.
I mean, was that money for the contractor, or is that money for us?
The building permit should have been about $450,000. The building committee was under the impression it was gonna be waived its entirety, so we waived it in part. So we will have expended by the end of the process, perhaps something on the order of half of that for actual inspections.
I make a motion to vote favorably on Article 27.
Second that.
A motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action for Article 27. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes.
6-0.
6. Where am I at? Article 28, capital budget A, lease of fire EMS ambulance. To see if the town will vote to A, raise and appropriate the sum of $56,000.00 to pay for the first year of a 5-year lease for a fully equipped ambulance with said lease not to exceed $280,000 in total, and have a so-called escape clause for lack of appropriation in addition to provisions for an early payoff without penalty and a $1 buyout upon the conclusion of all regularly scheduled lease payments. And B, appropriate the sum of $70,000 to write down the purchase price of said items such that they may be leased within the foregoing limits set in this article, and to meet said appropriation by a transfer of said sum from certified free cash. Article 28, questions?
So the yearly lease is $56,000 a year.
Correct.
But in order to get to that number, you're paying $70,000.
Yeah.
what would the lease be if you didn't pay the 70,000?
It would have been approximately another $15,000 a year. So we would have had to
Wouldn't
have
have
cut
supported.
operating budgets by 15,000 in order to carry the lease. It's similar to what we had to do.
Okay, so you're just using money.
was what
you're
their
just- It's
instructions.
kind of like a down payment.
It is, it's
Okay.
what we did with the fire engine and with the one-tons, because we have to
Okay.
cut the operating budget otherwise.
Yep, okay, got it.
All the capital articles that we had, I spent a lot of time with them, going back and forth. There were
Yeah.
some changes, there were some other revenues that we
Okay.
got, and I'm reading through these, they're exactly as planned.
Okay, I just wanted to.
That was the
Make sure
instructions that the TA gave us to say, here's what I can support in the in the operating budget for a lease.
Jeff, can I just observe
Yes.
upon one thing? Tony, if town had enough money, what I did in another town was we had a schedule. We figured out, an ambulance costs $300,000, gonna last 10 years, that's 30,000. We put all the money into a sinking fund, earned interest on it, and then when it was time to buy, we took the money out. We didn't pay these carrying costs. We just don't have that
Right,
flexibility.
I understand. Yeah, I understand that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Right.
right.
Just a question on the 70,000, and is that something that will be spent? And the reason I ask that is because I noticed on the, I think we did this last year on the fire truck, and there was 117.5 allocated for the fire truck, and I believe the budget shows today that there's 92.5 that's been spent, and the 25 is still in the account. And I was just wondering if that's just part of the way the process is working out, or if it's just, we didn't end up needing that.
It's the way the process works out. The fire engine takes as much as a year in delivery. So we make the first payment, then we get the final lease payments based upon where we're at. And this is to furnish and equip the trucks as well. So when the truck comes in, if there's hose needed, if there's SCBA tanks that's needed, if there's vinyl lettering that's needed, if there's putting our radios into it that's needed, that's not part of the lease of the truck itself, we use that 25. Whatever is not expended out of that then returns to cash. So that's a basic pattern that we've done the last couple of years. On one, we had a 6-wheel dump, 283. There's some of these other items that they do return to free cash at the end, once the vehicle's been fully fitted and all expenses have been paid.
Okay.
I
Okay,
can imagine
thank
it's
you.
probably expensive to outfit it once we take delivery. Hose, radios, stenciling.
Yeah, not everything is part of the lease.
Right.
Part of so a lot of that has to be done locally.
Yep. This is a good capital year for Templeton. Mr. Chair, I recommend 4, Article 28, Capital Budget A.
I'll second that motion.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action for Article 28. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will?
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, may I follow up on it quickly?
Yes.
It says 2/3 vote required. That was an opinion from DOR at one point. However, when our field rep was here, we discussed it with her because of the escape clause. It's really only a 1 year at a time commitment. She did not think it required the 2/3 vote and was gonna explore that. So by the time this lands on town meeting floor, if she's delivered a different legal opinion, it may be a majority vote. We may just leave it at 2/3 and then deal with it on the next time around. But I did want you to be aware of that in case that should happen.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'd recommend you not have to read the entire Article 29.
Article 29, capital budget B, rolling stock, studies and hardware, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $574,250.00 toward a program of capital purchases and improvements as generally illustrated below. It's a page and a half, and to meet said appropriation by a transfer of $555,750,000 from certified free cash and a transfer of $18,500 from overlay surplus.
I just have, just for
Question
clarification.
on Article 29?
Yeah, just for clarification, under the DPW B&G, Mr. Terrazini, it
Yep.
says town hall camera. Initially, I thought that was for cameras at the cemetery, because it's B&G, the buildings and grounds.
This is part of the buildings. These are for security cameras on the buildings. This building, which will be monitored at the police department in lieu of having a in-building alarm system.
Because I had seen somewhere that it was for just the, just a cemetery building, and I didn't see that as this building
I
here.
think we discussed this, you weren't at that meeting when we discussed
That's fine.
it. You weren't at the meeting when we discussed it.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, I believe it's just for this building, but I'll double check with Bob.
It's only this building and not this,
I
'Cause-
I believe so, but I will double check with Bob and
'Cause I mean,
get back to you.
that particular building, cemeteries, is isolated and can be, it doesn't have people around it. That was my concern, that I thought that was a good idea to monitor that, since it was way out of the way, and especially with what's happened in cemeteries here recently with stones, et cetera, I thought that might be a good use of our
I
money.
can tell you that if it was for the cemetery garage, there's no way you're gonna cover the entirety of those.
I understood that, but
With these cameras.
you don't know what's going on today. And I was just concerned that, we got equipment in that garage that's more expensive than some of the stones.
I'll double check for you, that's the best I can
I'm
do.
pretty sure it was because it was listed in the budget under cemetery building and grounds. I think that's where the confusion is.
We'll double check for you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to recommend favorable action on Article 29.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action on Article 29. Mike?
Yes.
Tony?
Yes.
Amy?
Yep.
Lee?
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
Yes.
And Mr. Chairman, Adam's correct, on page 233 of your budget books, you'll see it's in DPW, Buildings and Grounds, without distinction as to what buildings it is for. And my recollection from the superintendent is that it will be here.
That's what I remember.
But it just came from his department. That's why it's listed for me.
Article 30, Montechusett Regional Vocational Technical School, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $649,817.00 as the amount assessed upon the town for the fiscal year 2020 assessment by the Montechusett Regional Vocational Technical School District for the purposes of educating and transporting the town's enrolled students and capital and debt expenses provided. However, that any stated amount shall be reduced to any lesser amount, which shall subsequently be certified by the school committee and certified to the town for fiscal year 2020. and that number does match the letter certifying the budget from the treasurer of Montechusett Regional Technical School, which it did drop a little bit.
$50-some thousand, we would be in much bigger trouble if this had not.
Yeah, our enrollment's down.
Drop.
At the meeting when they didn't have the certified letter was not available at the time when Monty Tech visited. And in the meantime, when they came and present, and then they went back and did the paperwork, it drops, which is
Yeah,
a good thing.
It frankly, we'd be in much, much bigger trouble on the budget front if that had not dropped.
Mr. Chair, I propose a motion to recommend for Article 30, Montechusett school budget.
That's a motion to recommend for. Did anyone second?
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to recommend favorable action on Article 30. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
Yes,
yes.
6-0,
6 yes.
thank you.
Article 31 is a citizen's petition, of fluoride warning on water bills.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that Article 31, 32, 33, that this committee take no action as they are citizen petitions.
Is anyone here that submitted this article, this petition? Is anyone here who submitted Article 32? Anyone here that submitted Article 33? According to the ATFC's book, we are required to make a recommendation on municipal stuff, but not citizens petitions. So,
Would the sewage be a municipal?
it's a citizen's petition. It didn't come from the sewer
Oh, you're saying
commissioners,
it comes, okay.
article by them. One of the citizens happens to be a sewer commissioner, but it is still a petition.
You can't technically withdraw
Oh,
them once
I
they're
understand.
filed, but,
I get it.
and
I
I think Jeff was
temporarily
at the
forgot.
meeting, once we resolved all of the other open issues. My understanding with Mr. Jelinowski was that he would make no motion on it. A passover motion still requires someone speak pro, someone speak yes.
I'm sorry, I just forgot. I
And
forgot we discussed that.
Our understanding is that Mr. Jelinowski will not be making a motion, thus it would die for failure for anyone to move, assuming no one moves the question.
Do you have a second to the motion?
Oh, I second Tony's motion.
So the motion made and seconded concerns Articles 31, 32, and 33, all citizens petitions, that the committee makes no recommendation on those 3 articles. Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
Abstain.
yes.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to adjourn pre-town meeting.
I think we close it.
Close it, whatever the appropriate term is. I make a motion to close pre-town meeting.
I second that.
All right. Easy there, Mr. Poindexter. Had to get that one in one last time. Motion has been made and seconded to close the public hearing, for the town meeting warrant. Any discussions? Mike,
Yes.
Tony,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Will,
Yes.
and yes. At
2209.
I gotta wait, but.
Alrighty.
Is that Greenwich Mean Time?
That's
No.
funny.
Greenwich Mean Time would be +4 right now.
It's
That's really
5
call it
o'clock
something
somewhere, so
linear.
it's time to,
Zool?
Zulu time.
Is that
alright.
what it is now?
Yeah, it's Greenwich, based on Greenwich Mean
Right.
Time. though. Zulu time, yeah.
They call it
Right,
Zoom
the last
time?
item on the agenda is, if you wish to consider, the committee wish to consider their next meeting date.
Do we need to meet next week?
I would recommend that you have those meetings. One, what we've done in the past is, the first meeting of and that would be after both the election and the ballot, is kind of go over what has transpired. That should be really quick. The second one, later in the month, which is about the third week into the month, and it should be after the 20th or so, that you do a reorganization. And at that particular time, just so all the board members are aware, we have 2 people that are running for selectmen that can no longer be on here as of that date. So it would be,
Providing they're elected.
Provided they're elected.
provided that they're elected, I mean, when they're unopposed, I would say they have a strong chance of getting in.
I mean, you
Get a
never
strong
know.
write-in candidate.
There's a write-in candidate that could be very strong.
That's definitely true. I will not disagree with you, but
So the first question at hand is, are we meeting next Thursday? After all these meetings that are happening next week? Do we
it
need
would
to?
be until June.
It's when the committee wishes to meet.
That's my question.
The next plan would be.
The next planned meeting
16,
would be the
which is
day after town, would be day after town meeting, however, I believe that's gonna go into the second day.
What we've done in the past is skip that one,
Except-
and we go to June.
You have one issue, though. You have the new requirement of the open meeting law where you're supposed to accept your minutes within 30 days. I don't know if the Attorney General is gonna slap you hard for not doing that, but that's just a reminder to keep, to do good stuff.
This is Plan
follow
1.
that
You
meeting.
can, Mr. Chairman, if that's an issue that you're concerned about, you can always post a meeting for 6:15 on the floor of the auditorium and adopt your minutes.
We have,
that
right,
night
we
if
have
you-
this
if you
several
want.
things to do, so,
And that would keep you legal.
Yeah, and the minutes are done, so I'll
Okay.
email them as soon as I get home.
Okay.
So you'll have them now. We need to vote on the previous ones as well, but to your point, we can certainly
Mike's,
do that
Deb's,
at a time.
and Lee's.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Got
Yeah.
it. So calendar-wise, what's happening, nothing left this week, what's happening next week?
May 7th meeting
Yeah.
with town council.
Right.
That's at 6:30.
And the reason I say that you should have a second meeting is generally we reorganize at the end of June, and
Have a meeting,
it would require, because we would only at that particular time, if both individuals become selectmen, that the scribe will
that
end up
doesn't
having
have
to chair that
anything,
meeting.
that has nothing to do with this committee meeting. Do you all wish, I'm looking for a motion to meet prior to town meeting and do some house cleaning stuff. Yes, no,
Yes,
maybe?
Yes.
yes,
All right,
because I can't come next week, so
that would be,
Before. I cannot be at a meeting on the 9th of May.
Okay.
so our next meeting would be on May 15th.
16th.
No.
You wanna make-
Oh, sorry,
No,
15th,
May
yeah,
15th.
sorry, yeah, you're right.
At the auditorium,
ahead of time,
at
yeah.
the location of the town meeting.
Okay, what time is good for everybody? We can adjourn it early if we get through everything, so 5:30?
The
mean, how
town
much time
meeting's
do we
at 7
need?
o'clock,
Is it at 7 or 6:30?
7.
It's
Oh,
at
then I would
s- it's at
recommend 6.
7.
I would recommend 6 o'clock.
you bringing a bag of burgers? Is that what's happening?
I would anytime.
I'm just
That's
kidding,
Mike's
Mike.
thing.
So,
6 is fine with me.
Okay.
I make a motion to have an advisory committee meeting on 15 May at 1800 hours in the auditorium of Narragansett Middle School.
Second.
Oh, sure.
1,800
I thought you were
hours.
seconding it for a second.
I'm no longer in the military. What time is that?
is that Eastern time, Tony? Okay,
Yes, no, that is local time, 1800 local.
just making sure.
Wise guy.
That's
That's why
local
we
time,
shouldn't be
so
here
20
this late.
Exactly, yes.
Zulu.
Okay. All right. Anything
15 May.
else?
I'll send a,
Plus four when we
I'll send a
spend
calendar appointment, 15 May,
Thank
6
you.
o'clock.
Yes.
On the motion for the next meeting date, May 15th, at the middle school gym, Wednesday, 1800. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's
What-
done.
I'll make a motion
Entertain a
to
motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
What about any meetings after that, Mr.
Second.
Chairman?
Discuss them there. All those in favor? Adjourning?
Yes, aye.
Anyone opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Thank everyone
Carter and
for
Adam
coming.
might wanna stay a little longer.